Hello, friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of All New Snap Judgments. On this, our 19th episode since we began as Marvel Snap Stone's official podcast. I am happy to be here with my friend and yours, Aaron Glazer. Glazer, my friend, how are you on this wonderfully beautiful fall day here on the East Coast of the United States?
I am great. It is not so cold that my man thing is having trouble.
Did you have a wonderful Indigenous Peoples Day here in the U.S.?
Absolutely. Any day off work.
I feel you, my friend. But it is not a day off work for our lovely special guest that we have this week. Glazer, who is going to be joining us this week?
So I'm going to start with the man you can almost certainly find streaming as this goes live, because he is streaming 24 hours a day for this week. Seemingly, it's like 6 or 7 hours a day, but it's still completely nuts. It is PeacefulSea, the man for whom everyone who watches my content then watches his goes and likes him better. Hi, Peaceful. How are you?
It's not true. I'm doing great, man. It's been a fun week so far, and I'm looking forward to getting some more streams in. And thank you for the kind words. I enjoyed helping you out in your channel whenever you need it. So,
Cool.
Well, Aaron, we're not just joined by Peaceful today. Who is our very special returning guest?
So no one's ever heard of this guy, but like he's pretty good at Snap. If you're audio only, you're like, what? So people that are video know this already. But we've got the best player in all of Marvel Snap. Bar none, no exceptions. It's Lamby. How you doing tonight?
Hey guys, what's up? It's a pleasure to be back. I'm excited to record this episode like how I did the previous one. And yeah, most people don't know who I am. It's cool.
Well,
he pays me to get on this podcast, just so everyone's clear.
Yeah.
Lamby, real quick, since nobody knows who you are, could you just let our loyal listeners and loyal viewers know where to find you on social media?
Right, because no one really knows who I am, and I need this video to popularize myself so greatly. You can find me on twitch.tv, twitch.tv/LambySeriesTV, and also on twitter.com/LambySeriesGG. And last but not least, on YouTube at Lamby Series Gaming.
And Peaceful, where can our view? Oh,
I was going to do the same thing, Aaron. Go ahead.
Peaceful, where can our viewers find you?
Cool. You can find me on Twitch. I'm at twitch.tv/PeacefulSea. You can find me on YouTube at PeacefulSea, and you can find me on Twitter at PeacefulSeaTTV. Those are my main channels.
All right, we have some scary, spooky season content for you all. But before we can do that, I need to remind you where you can engage with us on social media. First and foremost, we are on whatever Elon Musk is calling his social media network right now, which I believe is X, at SnapJudgeCast. We are, of course, very, very proud to be the official podcasting partner of Marvel Snap Zone, where you can find Glazer being extremely active in their Discord. Marvel Snap Zone has the best large Discord in all of Marvel Snap, and you should go click on the link in the description of this episode, either on YouTube or your friendly neighborhood podcatcher. Click it, join the Discord, engage with the awesome community, engage with Glazer. Awesome things to be doing with your time and your valuable Discord moments. We are able to be emailed if we can find your email through the kinks spam that Glazer has subjected our account to. We will do our best to answer you. And our email is at snapjudgmentspodcast@gmail.com. We're also on everyone's favorite extinct Animals social media network, Mastodon, at Snap Judgments with an E at tabletop.vip. And last, but definitely not least, you found us through the Marvel Snap Zone YouTube, if you're watching the video of this for our loyal viewers. And you should go right now and find our show's personal YouTube video channel at Snap Judgments Pod, where every single weekday, some weekends, and sometimes twice, even 3 times a day, Aaron is up there grinding out, offering you snap takes. Glazer, if our loyal listeners wanted to become our loyal viewers, what would they find on the YouTube now?
So I usually do 2 decks a day every weekday, but yesterday I did my first ever full opinion piece. I looked at the burning questions of Snap. Is Alioth actually OP and in need of a nerf? And are Loki and Elsa pay to win cards? And I looked at all the different information from all the different sources I could to try and form a conclusion.
Awesome. Well, speaking of burning, Fear the Touch of the Man-Thing, which is the new card for this week. It is a 4-cost, 5 strength, Series 4, only 3k tokens for this bad boy. The ongoing ability of this card is 1, 2, and 3 cost cards here have -2 power. That includes both your cards and your opponent's cards. Peaceful, since this is your first time on the show, why don't you lead us off here? What are your thoughts on everyone's favorite pun-tastic, immaturely named Marvel character, Man-Thing?
Surely named. I love that. So I actually did get some time to play with it today, and I was pretty excited about this card coming out, but I was very tepid on how good I actually thought it would end up being, given the prevalence of everyone's favorite bald guy, Luke Cage, everywhere in the metagame right now to combat some of the other stuff going on. And my conclusions end up being correct. But even more frightening, I think, is how bad it is even just into the Elsa decks, because they don't really care that much. You know, like when you're adding 3 power to your units a lot of time, and then you can move them out of the lane, you know, wherever you need to move them to get the power back. It's just, I lost a lot of games to decks that where you would think Man-Thing would be good just because of what cards are being played right now in the metagame, specifically things like Jeff, things like Nightcrawler, and things like Elsa, just really kind of damper how good he is. Now, the effect is super powerful. I do think, I think there will be times where he will shine in the metagame. I just don't think it's right now, unfortunately.
Lamby?
Yeah, so the funny thing about Man-Thing is that I actually initially was quite tempted by the card because I thought it was going to be quite good. But the more I think about it, I actually skipped buying the card, by the way, because I was about to buy it. Then before I bought it, I was thinking about it a bit, and I was like, okay, I think actually this card is not that amazing, because at the end of the day, it's a bit clunky in the meta right now. Like in a sense, you do have some value playing this card against like the Elsa, Angela, little guys stuff, but like the thing is, they buff themselves up so greatly that I think playing Man-Thing just on turn 4 is like too slow. Like if the Angela on curve, the Elsa on curve, they just keep buffing and buffing and buffing. Your Man-Thing is probably not gonna do too much. Also, I don't know why for the longest time I thought this was a 4-6 and not a 4-5. So that's like a bit minus points for me as well. So yeah, I'm not too excited for this now. I haven't even bought the card, so like I don't even know if I'm gonna buy the card. Probably not until I actually watch someone else do something fantastic with it. I know I'm not gonna be trying to be doing something fantastic with this card, like at least today.
So I have 2 thoughts. My first thought is I have a working theory that when they want us to play a card, they have certain costs that are their signals to us that cards are good. I think if they release a card at 3-5, basically every time they release a card at 3-5, they're telling us play that card. I think that number is 4-6 and 5-8. And that's like their signal to us that like they're trying to stat this aggressively, so we'll try it and realize how good the ability is. When it's 4-5, it's Silver Samurai, it's Stegron, which are like fine cards, right? Neither of those are bad, but they're not meta warpers. When it's 3-4, it's Dakin, but when it's 3-5, it's Spider-Man, right? Like I think that's this. I don't know for sure, but it's happened over and over again since I thought of this a few months ago, to the point where I'm starting to genuinely believe that there's like a real pattern here. The other thing is I can't bring myself to actually put Man-Thing into a deck because it doesn't seem special, but I've beaten it a lot today. So that doesn't speak well to it.
Well, and it's symmetrical, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like if there was any value in it, it would probably be in being able to have this one-sided effect. But your 1, 2, and 3 cost cards also get negative power, so it's just really hard to build around.
I mean, pour one out for Zabu too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Lamby, what was your thought of the other card that's so far been released in October, which is our girl Elsa? What do you think about the monster hunter herself?
Okay, so that other card, I thought it was gonna be insane before it launched, and when it actually launched, it was actually insane. So 1 out of 1, correct. No, anyway. So the thing about Elsa is that like one thing that I was very sure about was that the card was gonna be insane, right? Like every time they have +3 is just mad. Like look at Forge, look at Pre-Nerf Surfer, like +3 is just crazy. But like the thing I learned about Elsa, like after she has been launched and after like casting like a tournament and like playing with the card a bit more, is that like you don't actually need a dedicated Elsa deck to make Elsa good. Like I was doing like great work with it in Bounce, which is a very dedicated Elsa-ish kind of deck. But like I've seen people and like many people find success in just splashing it in like Brood apps, a little bit that in like Silk Move and even Thanos or Loki. You just have like if you got little things that move out of locations or go back to your hand like Kitty Pryde, well not even little things, like if you got Vision, to be honest, like Elsa is just perfect, right? Because at minimum she's a 2/5 +3. Very often she's a minimum of 2/8, and obviously in the dedicated deck she's like a 2/14, 2/17, which is crazy, right? So I think Elsa in general is very splashable. It's that she's great in decks that are dedicated with her, to her. But like most of the time you don't need to do that. You can just play her in any deck that plays multiple cards in one turn, which is like most decks in Marvel Snap. AKA she fits in most decks in Marvel Snap. So yeah, I think she's definitely like a 4.5 out of 5, 4.9, 4.8 out of 5. That high. I think she's a really insane card right now in the game.
Peaceful.
So Elsa's an interesting card because I think you've seen a lot less backlash against her than you did with Loki. But I honestly can't say that I think Loki is a more powerful card. It's just I think the play patterns Loki created were so much more toxic to play against. Like losing to your own deck just doesn't feel good. But Elsa is, she's up there, I think, with the most powerful season pass cards they've ever given us. She's got to be up there with maybe not pre-nerf Zabu, but she's up there with Loki. She's up there with Surfer. Like she's just, obscene. And like it's like Lammy said. I think he made the best point: is you don't really like have to do anything. You just put the good card in your deck, and it makes your deck better. And that's a sign of just a really oppressively powerful card. And I think the only reason you're not seeing so much backlash is because she's both fun to play with and it's very easy to play against because you can understand what their patterns are going to be. Like, okay, they set up this lane, now they're going to put a Jeff there, now they're going to put a Vision there, and it makes it a little bit easier to play around her. But I do think I went from initially thinking like, wow, she's really, really good, but she's probably fine, to I'm on the boat of she probably needs dunked down a little bit in power. She's crazy.
Yeah, I wanted to add, it's quite interesting, like people's reaction to busted stat gaining cards or like just good cards is very different from people's reaction to invalidate your turn 6 cards, aka like Alioth, Pre-Nerf Arrow, Leader. They're all actually just good cards, and like yeah, but the reaction to like the whole Alioth, Pre-Nerf Arrow and Pre-Nerf Leader is like way stronger than their reaction to Elsa, right? Like you just notice this. I'm not sure why as well, but maybe it's just people don't like their turns to be invalidated.
It's a feels thing, right? Like, losing to Leader feels bad because they played one card and they invalidated everything you did. Losing to Loki feels bad because they take all your cards and play them for cheaper. And Arrow felt bad because no matter what you did, you couldn't beat it, before they changed it. And, if you were, especially if you're behind in priority. So there was just a lot of, I think it's a feels thing where I don't even think Alioth is necessarily the most broken card or like that hard to play around, but it just feels bad knowing that, oh, well, they have priority, I lose, whereas Elsa's just like, well, she just put stats on the board. It's kind of innocuous in a way, but the impact Elsa has on the game, I think, is way, way higher than Alioth has ever been.
Yeah, but I think the difference is interaction, right? if you're doing something that's just more powerful than what the opponent does and you're not really interacting with each other, that's one thing. People like it's the same people who complain about Shang-Chi all the time. People don't like when you take away their toy. So like it's that Elsa's just making your toys better, and like fine, whatever, your toys can be better. It's not taking anything away from what my deck is doing. So if my deck does what it does, oh, you just got lucky, you happened to see that, right? Versus you didn't let me play with my toys, and if you don't let me play with my toys, you're a bad person. And like, so that's the hatred for Alioth, that's the hatred for Leader, that's the hatred for Arrow, and that's why Arrow never got as toxic as Leader, even though it was probably just as good, because it wasn't taking away your toys, it was just moving them somewhere else.
I think also cards like Alioth, like you lose because of micro decisions that you made frequently, like some small decision that could be placement of a card that didn't seem like it meant much on turn 2, but was actually like a horrible mistake for how the game played out. You lose because of those choices. Well, and people get very upset, right? They look at this Alioth that isn't really the card that caused them to lose. It just feels like it's the card, like Peaceful is saying, right? But in the grand strategy of the game, Alioth was just sort of like the final cut when you're already bleeding to death, right? To put you out of your misery. But cards like Elsa, like there's something you can point to that is very like obvious and in your face and screaming like, yes, this number go up, I lose, right? And people tend to feel better when they lose playing against those types of cards because it feels less like a decision, like that the things are more in control for both players. Even if in both games you were losing because you screwed up your lane placement on turn 2.
Yeah, so I want to add one. Well, to me it's not a hot take, but like to some people they'll be like, "What?" But like I think it's quite true because I feel like okay, so I've lost my fair share of Alioth, like whether it's like inevitable one lane for sure Alioths or like 50-50 Alioths, like whatever, right? Like I've lost my fair share of Alioths as well, but like personally, I feel like losing to a card like Alioth on turn 6, if you do lose to it, you kind of deserve it. Cause like Roy mentioned earlier, I think it was Roy, but it was like Alioth is a card that like punishes your micro decisions. So like Marvel Snap is a 6-turn game. So like if in these 6 turns you make one wrong micro decision, I don't think it's really anybody's fault because like there's 6 turns, right? So if on one of these turns you make a mistake and get punished by Alioth, then too bad. Like it's not like you are completely punished by making one mistake out of like 1 out of like 40 turns. That one's a bit like sad. But this is 1 out of 6 turns, guys. Like 1 out of 6 turns, if you make a small micro decision or mistake and then you get punished by Alioth, I think it's very fair. So I've been on this like not don't have to worry too much about Alioth train thing for a while because I feel like it's just natural progression of the game, and like if you know that Alioth exists, you can sort of play around it. Sometimes you can't. That's why I don't think this is like a general blanket statement, but I feel like in many scenarios, if you lose to Alioth, you just have to accept that you usually let yourself lose to it, you know?
I think I agree if the test... So we're releasing this before the OTA, and apparently, according to the test server on the second dinner thing, Alioth is being tested as a 6-4. I think that's much truer as a 6-4 than as a 6-5. I think the I tie Doom, I tie Silk thing, I tie Spider-Man is a real issue. And I think losing to those makes Alioth much more fair.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I was talking about this somewhere as well, but like if Alioth was a 6-4, the fact that you can play a Doctor Doom in the right location and win it is very relevant, right? So definitely something to consider. But in general, I feel like currently, based on my personal experience, like if even current Alioth, like 6-5 Alioth, I feel it's not too domineering in the sense that like you don't see it coming. I feel like many decks now in the game, it's quite interesting. Many decks now in the game are trying to Alioth you on 6 and trying to, and then on the flip side is like many decks are trying to not die to Alioth on 6, right? That's why we play things like Vision, which is really great at dodging Alioth. So I feel like the game has like generally adapted towards Alioth already, which is very interesting because most decks, at least as of now, they are adapted to Alioth, but a lot of them are not adapted to beating Elsa, which is why Elsa can be like splashed in anywhere and still do good work, right? Like people just hate Alioth this kind of cards, and then they just adapt their whole world around it, which is quite an interesting development.
And I do think, like, we have to keep in mind, like, the change to Alioth might be, like, second dinner. If that ends up being the change that they do, obviously we don't know for sure. It's just on the test server. But you've got to think that they also have to look at all ranks, right? So it's very easy as players who are very invested, like we are, to be like, okay, if you know what Alioth does, you know what decks run it, you know how to play around it. If you do lose to it, it's partially because of the decisions you made. But for a rank 20 to 50 player who's, maybe the highest they get on a month is rank 50, rank 60, losing to Alioth is something that is probably very frustrating because they don't have nearly as much experience, and they also probably don't see it nearly as much. Mm-hmm. And I do think that Second Dinner takes that into account a lot more than we do when they make changes to cards. Like, that's why I think things like Leader and Arrow got changed the way they did, because personally, I think you need endgame cards that are like Alioth. I think that's an important thing to have in Snap to counter certain strategies that are just trying to go over the top, and like those mid-range decks don't have a way to combat that if you take away something like Alioth. But for players who are newer, players who don't really, aren't necessarily as familiar with cards, I think it can be a very frustrating and toxic card to have around. So I do think if they change Alioth, the main reason will not necessarily be that it was oppressive at high levels of play. It's like the Galactus effect, right? They keep changing Galactus, and like in reality, Galactus has never been like the very best deck. It might get close every once in a while, but it's usually like a tier, like right under tier 1 deck. It's like, somewhere around a 50% win rate. But it's the impact it has on the larger Snap population that I think has caused poor Galactus to get nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed. So
yeah, I think you're right in the sense that like Alioth style cards are a bit more unfun, right? And I think things being a bit more unfun would also be a concern for Second Dinner. So I do understand that perspective. Also, funny you mentioned Galactus, because Galactus is. I was talking to this with KM Best the other day, and then it was quite a funny conclusion because we concluded that like if Galactus could like not exist, like if they didn't introduce the idea of blowing up 2 lanes to the Marvel Snap community to begin with, like I think maybe if they could like go back in time to revisit their decision of making Galactus the way it is, then it's kind of interesting because like now the fact that we all know that there's this style of effect in the game, that there's like this cult of people that really love Galactus, and there's like the majority that don't. But like if we could go back in time and never introduce this like idea of Galactus into the game, there was a chance. I feel like there might be a chance that Second Dinner might actually just decide to not introduce such an effect into the game, because like how do you nerf something like Galactus to make everybody happy, right? Because like if it's too easy to pull off, no one's happy. If it's too difficult to pull off, the group of people that love Galactus is also not happy. So it's just that how do you find that fine line now? Just a funny thought that I thought about when you mentioned Galactus.
I mean, have you heard Glenn talk about Galactus? He clearly doesn't like that card.
Yeah, I know.
Like, whether Second Dinner or not, Glenn doesn't like it.
So I wonder if he was involved in like the conception of Galactus. Maybe not.
It predates him.
Yeah, so I guess like I said, if they really did have a way of rewinding time and like not introducing Galactus into the game, maybe Glenn would want that to happen,
Mm-hmm. All right.
Galactus is a really cool idea, Like it's like they saw like, oh, Galactus, Galactus is the eater of worlds. What if he ate 2 of the locations? And then like, they actually implement it, and it's like we've talked about it. It just causes issue after issue, especially with player sentiment. Yeah, I love Galactus, but I do understand why so many people hate it. It can be a very frustrating thing to lose to when you do lose to it.
Yeah, the funny thing is now that the idea is out there, like it's impossible to retract, because like there's really a group of people that just love Galactus. Like I know personally quite a lot of people that like the deck, so that's too bad.
All right, so Aaron, you have some questions for our special guests here. So what do you got for him?
So we're going to go over, I want to say like 9 questions, 10 questions. I don't know. I can't count. The first and last are stolen from Design Notes. One of our viewers gave them to me, and I liked them. So time to brag, and we'll start with Peaceful, then we'll go Lamby. When did you realize that you're good at what you do?
Oh, that's a really funny question. So I've I've been obsessed with like Marvel Snap style games for as long as I can remember. And when it came to content creation, I wasn't good at it for the longest time. And it wasn't until like just recently that I really realized like I was starting to, like probably just in the last couple months where I was like, if I actually stop farting around and like actually put a little bit of effort into this, like I could really do a good job at this. And that's when I really sort of turned that around. But as far as like actual gameplay and like streaming and stuff, I think it's something I've always loved. It's something me and my best friend talk about all the time. Like when we were in middle school and high school, like he didn't want to play games and my brothers didn't want to play games. They come and sit and watch me and talk to me because I was the one that was really good at it. I was the one who'd always find the really broken combos, and I was the one that would like I would speed run Metroid Prime back in high school. Like that was me. And so it's always been something I've loved and wanted to do, and honestly just wish I'd started doing earlier in my life because I love entertaining, but I also love teaching. And I think that's part of what makes me love streaming so much is because people can come in and learn and ask you questions, and you can learn from them too. And that's just, I've gotten so much, it's weird to say, but I've gotten so much better at games like Marvel Snap since I started streaming.
Nice.
All right, so mine is really interesting. So I've had this super long history of card games. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh like I think 19 years ago. Yeah, so I played Yu-Gi-Oh since I was a kid, right? And then when I was like 12, I made top 8 of nationals for the first time. So it was quite interesting. Yeah, when I was 12, yeah, legit. So I felt like maybe my mind was always quite analytical in percent. But like I feel like my competitiveness in terms of like games is not exactly just from games. Like I think since young I've been competing in everything. Like even when I wasn't doing like card games, I was competing in like real sports. I did tennis for a bit, right? Like at the varsity level. And then of course I made a career out of Hearthstone for like good part of my mid-20s. So Marvel Snap, I think firstly being competitive in Marvel Snap for me, I think was like a natural thing. Also because I played poker, and Marvel Snap is quite literally a lot like poker, right? Let's be real. So being invested in something like Marvel Snap right now is like very natural for me because it's card games and it's like analytical and it's like playing the player kind of stuff. So, and I really enjoy that. From the content creation angle, I actually only like realized that I had like I guess an ability to do this like maybe last year or like earlier this year, because like the game that I was doing prior, Hearthstone, it wasn't doing so well. So I jumped to this, and this one doesn't have an official competitive scene, right? So I had to do a bit of like content related stuff. And then that's where I realized that I knew that I liked like teaching and helping people improve. But I realized in Marvel Snap, there was actually a huge market for me to help people grow, because I feel like a lot of the things that I know is not something that people know. And a lot of the things that I think about, I used to always think that like everyone thought like the way I did. But the more I talk to people, I realized that like there's very little people that think the way I do. Like legit very little people that think the way I do. Even at the highest level of Marvel Snap, like among other good players, right? Like I realized there's things that I can still teach them. And I feel like I guess the way I think is a bit different, and it's beneficial to a lot of players to like maybe think in this direction as well. So the more I like spend time in Marvel Snap, the more I feel like, okay, I think there's something here for me to like grow. And yeah, we've been growing for like the last 6 months, and it's been great. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. And like I know that this is a big question. So like, but what's different about the game in tournaments and Conquest mostly, but also ladder? Like, so I haven't competed in a Snap tournament yet. I've done a lot of Conquest and a lot of ladder, and they couldn't be more different. I think it's worth like just saying what that difference is for people. But how are Conquest and tournaments different?
All right, so I'll start. Conquest and tournaments, there are similarities. Firstly, it's all battle mode. That's fun, obviously. But the second thing is also closed deck list tournaments, which is basically you don't get to see the deck list. Closed deck list tournaments are actually very similar to like the Conquest mode, because you rock up to the game, you don't know what your opponent's playing, your opponent doesn't know what you're playing, and then you just play, and then sometimes surprise tags come in. Sometimes you figure out early what their deck is, stuff like that. So Conquest and closed deck list tournaments are quite similar, but like Conquest and open deck list tournaments are very, very different, because when it comes to open deck list tournaments, it's closer to what I like to think it's closer to chess. Not exactly, but it's closer to chess, whereby there's more like perfect information, right? Like you know everything that your opponent has in their deck, the 12 cards. Your opponent knows the 12 cards that you have. So it's like about who solves the riddle of like, firstly, who's the better player, and who solves like how to play the matchup more efficiently, and like who knows the matchup better, because there is nothing that to surprise you. You know exactly what your opponent is packing to counter you, and vice versa. So I think open deck list tournaments have been one of the like playgrounds for better players to succeed, because if you're a better player, I guess you analyze the game a bit more. You are more used to understanding like how a matchup goes and how to beat a certain thing, right? You're more invested. So with more perfect information and with more investment in the game, you tend to make better decisions when there are less variables. And for open deck list tournaments compared to like closed and conquest, the variables are largely eliminated. So that's why you see like constantly a lot of like good players doing well in open deck list tournaments. Well, they do well in closed deck list tournaments as well, but like more do well in open deck list tournaments consistently. And I think I want to give a bit of a mention to ladder as well. Ladder to me is, I always use this same analogy, which is ladder to me is like grinding multi-tables of poker online. Like, you know, when I was like there used to be this thing, or like now still, of course, like you play like 4, 6, 8 tables of poker online concurrently, and then you just play like a fixed set of hands, and then if those hands are not available to you, you fold. If those hands are available to you, you call, you raise. You have a pattern. So to me, ladder is because ladder is like sample size of 1, right? So there's not much you can really do to like one up your opponent, unless you're like maybe at like top 5 and you always play the same person and you know what they're playing, you know their style, that kind of thing. But other than that, your opponents are so random. It can be anyone. They can be doing anything. So I feel like if you stick to to me ladder is a bit soft in a sense. Like the only reason why like a lot of people that are like decent at the game don't climb in ladder is because they let human emotion come into the game. If you play like a robot, like I sometimes say this, if you play like a robot, you are supposed to climb ladder. Like if you are decently good at the game and you play like a robot, aka play good hand, snap good hand. When you get snap, hand is bad, retreat. If you play like this and very like ones and zeros, very binary style, if you do this, right, you are supposed to climb on ladder. But why people cannot climb on ladder no matter how good they are sometimes is because we are human. They decide to do things like, this 8 cuber is possible to win. Let me stay and try. This 4 cuber is possible to win. Let me stay and try. It's not wrong, by the way. In Conquest, you have to make such decisions, such calls like, all right, I think there's a good chance that I can win here. Let's go. But on ladder, to be completely frank, if you are just a robot, you are supposed to climb. Like if you are decently good at the game. So that's one thing that I realized ladder is, it's actually very soft if you be more of a less of a human, more of a robot. Yeah.
Peaceful additions?
Honestly, like Lammy and I've covered some of this in the show we do together, and I 100% agree. I think my favorite, personally, of the tournament styles is the open decklist tournament because, like Lammy said, it rewards people who are prepared and it rewards people who understand matchups. Whereas when you do closed decklist in Conquest, like you're always going to be surprised. Like a common thing that really would get me just last month was when Loki was everywhere, and you play the Loki mirror in Conquest. You play against a Loki deck in Conquest, and you expect, because of the Loki mirror being so prevalent, they wouldn't have Shang, and then you get shanged and stuff like that. Like when that stuff happens, it's just very frustrating for somebody who does play. Like I like to do. I'm like very analytical. I like to think through like, well, what's the possibilities here? What's the likely to be in their deck, and seeing something like that and losing like that. Whereas in open decklist tournaments, it rewards people who can look at the deck list and figure out what the best lines are to take, when they should snap, and things like that. But ladder's really weird in Marvel Snap specifically because it, like Lammy said, it's very much more about being disciplined. And like to me, like I tried actually kind of experimented this month. Normally I get to infinite and I'm done. I go and play Conquest, and I actually took a week and just sort of tried to grind ladder a little bit and see what the experience is like. And what I really learned was that it really is, to me, very, like Lammy said, solved. It's very boring because you should play the best decks. You should play them in the best way, you should snap the hands with your highest win rate cards like Elsa. And if you're doing that, it's very easy to climb. The second you try and play an off meta deck that's not as powerful or anything like that, or the second you start trying to have fun and like maybe playing out an 8-cube game that you shouldn't, you're going to stop climbing. And it's just, I don't know, it's just not for me. I find Conquest to be a lot more appealing because it rewards. I think it rewards people who understand context of the game and stuff like that a lot more, and that's why I think tournaments are also just. I wish, like Lamby's kind of talked about, we don't have a super amazing competitive scene in Marvel Snap. It's really not coming from Second Dinner. It's coming from a lot of other people right now, and I would really love to see that tournament scene continue to grow because I think Marvel Snap is one of the most ingenious games when it comes to that really high level of play. Where when you watch a match of a like top 8 of Marvel Snap, it's like they're almost playing a different game, and there's so much thought and so many layers of like, well, the person trying to play around what they think the person's going to do, and reading the person's tendencies and being like, oh well, they really like playing, like they snap their hand when they have this and this, and if you can deduce what they have, it just adds so many layers to Snap. And I think that's part of the genius of Snap and why a lot of us are so addicted to it, is that there's just so many layers that once you get to that top level of play.
I think I have quite a few points to add, which is kind of cool because I thought I was done on this topic, but I realized I actually have a lot more to add on this topic, which is good, right? That's why you guys have me here. All right, anyway, so firstly, I want to talk a bit about ladder again first, which is I recently tried this thing. I wanted to like talk a bit more about this, but like on somewhere else, but I realized it's not going to be that long anyway, so I'm just going to talk about it here. Like, I tried this thing whereby I spent like, I don't know why I did this. I feel like I just wanted to like make sure it was correct. Like I spent like 8 hours on ladder. Like I think a few days back. Just not a few days back, sorry, like a few weeks back. Yeah, actually I did it last season. I spent like 8 hours on ladder just playing Shuri Sauron. I know you guys might be like what the heck? Like I played 8 hours of Shuri Sauron on ladder with a very strict system. Only snap Shuri Sauron, never play 50-50s, and if you are unsure, always leave. I use these 3 rules. In 8 hours, right, I climb. Like, I stuck strictly to these 3 rules for 8 hours and I only went up. Like, I obviously lost some games, but I only went up. Like, at the end of the day, it was up. Like, the thing is, what I realized is that, like I mentioned before, it's really about following a system for ladder. And if you can eliminate as much human emotion from that your system, you will climb. But obviously it's the most boring thing I did in like so long. And I don't know how I lasted for 8 hours, but I felt like I needed this amount of sample size to make sure it's like kind of correct. So I did it and I realized that it's really just numbers. Of course you have to be like decently well versed in the game to make such things work anyway. But like you get my point. For tournaments, actually, yeah, I one more thing I wanted to talk about was when Peaceful mentioned like at the top 8 of a tournament or like at the highest level of this game, it's really crazy and like really difficult to master. Because one thing genius about Marvel Snap is that like it's low barrier to entry, which is good, right? Many people can pick up the game, but high skill at the top, which is hard to master. Like a lot of tournaments that I've played in Marvel Snap, and like why I wish that like they actually spend more time on like tournaments and like the whole battle mode thing. Because firstly, I think battle mode is a genius idea, right? The whole cubes, snapping, upping the ante, it's a genius idea. And based on that, at the highest level of Marvel Snap, like me personally, a lot of my games that I win in Marvel Snap in tournaments have nothing to do with the fact that I open great. Most of the time I open trash, but like my opponent opens more trash and I notice that their hand was worse than mine. Then you snap, then they leave. Like these kind of things. Like these kind of things is like you don't really care about in like lower levels of play. But at higher levels of play, you need to like think of like when you snap or when they snap you, what range of hands can they snap you with? Are they snapping based on their hand? Are they snapping based on the location? And then when do you want to snap them? Or when do you want to snap them back to like allow them to feel that they can stay or make them feel like they're weak enough to retreat? These kind of things. Like it's so like in each other's head and like it's not even easy to like put into words because like it's really at a point in time in the moment each of you trying to get into each other's head. And I think like high level Marvel Snap has that kind of potential. And I mean obviously I don't know what Second Dinner is thinking at any point in time, but I do wish really that like they realize they created such a genius mode in battle mode and like push towards like the whole competitive side of the game. Because I think like there's a lot of people that are willing to invest time to watch such sides of the game. I don't know if it's gonna be that much like in terms of like the like casual players converting to wanting to watch competitive content. But from what I've seen so far, like there's actually like an active interest in like learning the more complex side of this game. So hopefully there's something there.
Okay. Well, we covered like 3 of the questions, but let's just do the... So, okay. I think this question is largely about sideboards, but if there's anything else besides like more promotion, because I agree, Conquest is where the game is. I don't think the leaderboard did anything it was supposed to for ladder, except let people make really wild claims about who the best players in the game are. Right? What would you like to be changed about Conquest or tournaments? Are you pro or con on sideboards?
Peaceful, you want to go first?
Oh, sure.
Look at that.
Sideboards are an interesting proposition, but I don't know how possible they are within the structure of the game right now. I guess if it's a community-run tournament, they could make some sort of rules for how that would work. What I would like to see is, as far as Conquest itself, is just a little bit more, it being a little bit more forgiving at the gold and infinite level, because let's be honest, like I think Snap of most card games I've ever played has some of the most polarized matchups I've ever seen. And there are some matchups where it's truly like you're like 30-70. Like Lammy and I have talked about a couple times, like how it used to be with Darkhawk into like the destroy decks. Like when you played against Shuri Nimrod, you just literally could never win. And, you know, it took a lot to win matchups against that deck particularly. And if you played against a skilled pilot, it was basically impossible. So I think for the average person, I think Conquest could do with just like maybe making it 3 wins and 1 loss and then 5 wins and 1 loss. But I know a lot of people probably wouldn't like that. I do think that it's a little bit punishing right now. And I know for a fact it turned a lot of the general population of Snap off from playing Conquest, having it be a strict, you can't lose, that's it, you're done, you're gone, because there are so many matchups where maybe you built your deck in a specific way, or it's like or you're playing like a zoo deck and you're a newer player and you run into this deck that has Killmonger in it and they just destroy you the whole time because they have Killmonger and you have a bunch of 1-drops. It's, it just creates a very bad, like we talked about with the Alioth and stuff, like Conquest has kind of this feel bad feeling to it for a lot of players because of the way Gold and Infinite Conquest are structured, and that you just can't drop a single match, which is really, really punishing. But for tournaments, on the other hand, I do think if they could find a way to make it smoothly implemented, I think that would be a really awesome way to make that same issue, the matchup issue, a little bit fairer, where it's like, a best 2 out of 3. But I think when you're looking at a tournament, and Lammy can attest to this, tournaments can already go so long. So if you're going to add a sideboard mode to Conquest, suddenly those matches are going to go from being, sometimes 20 to 40 minutes to now, there's no way you can do that without making it at least an hour long, right? Because if you're doing sideboard, then that means you're playing more than 1 round. And that to me causes some problems in itself. Now, if Second Dinner were to implement some way of doing sideboard within a match, that would be different. But that seems like a lot to ask with the way the game is currently structured.
Yeah. So the thing about sideboards is that, okay, so firstly, for me personally, I'm someone that's very willing to explore. So I don't actually know if it will be good for the game, but I want to explore sideboards, like be it as a okay, it's probably not going to be in the game anytime soon, like in terms of UI or whatever, but like if any tournaments want to explore that kind of format with people who are willing to explore that kind of format, I'll be super down. Because like I like in the past when they did the Korean draft format, which was popular for like a few months, I was like playing every Korean draft format tournament ever. Like I love exploring new formats, and I love this game. In general, I feel like this is one of the games that I invest the most time in since like Hearthstone, and I love this game a lot. So like I would really be very willing to explore all forms of competitive formats. Of course, with a sideboard in Marvel Snap, I think because the main deck is only 12 cards, a sideboard in Marvel Snap should probably never go above 3 cards. Even 2 would be fine. Like just give you like an additional like pocket of options to just rotate in and out, that kind of thing. So actually my upcoming tournament, the Lamby Open, that's like happening this coming weekend. The top 8 we are actually doing 2 decks best of 3, and the second deck minimum there must be 3 cards different. So I guess you could call that technically a sideboard, or like there's also the option to change every card in your deck. But like I'm just saying, so I'm very willing to explore such options. But I think Peaceful mentioned one thing which is very real, which is Conquest is actually relatively long for some people already, right? Like in the game. And then a sideboarding option inside would definitely extend the game as well. So I think length of game is something that is very important to a lot of like casual / semi-casual players. Because a lot of the people that I know that play this game, just because they love Marvel, or like they want like to play a game on the go, they don't really like Conquest because it's too dragged out, right? It's not like fast games like ladder can be. Queue times are also a concern on certain like for certain people. So I think how should I put it? Sideboarding is, like, to conclude, I think sideboarding is something that I would definitely want to explore, and I know a decent amount of people that would want to explore this, but I don't think it's something that can be implemented in the game. But as a third party like rule set, sideboarding as a rule set, I think something that's definitely worth considering.
Just want to add a note about the time of games. Like, I work full time. I make a video every day. I break 2 to 3 articles a week, right? Like, every other month. So Conquest has existed for 4 months. So I've done Conquest 2 months, Infinity 2 months, and I've not done it 2 months. Just like the time commitment to sit there for a full grind, and like it's an ordeal. And then I realize if I have to put it down and come back later, like now I'm locked into that Infinity Conquest and I can't do anything else if I just want to take a break. Like it's a genuine thing. Like if they would let you go in and out for your ticket or something, I think that would alleviate a lot of it. But like I feel like I have to have time to sit there for 5 straight Conquest games to do Infinity Conquest. And like my life doesn't do that often.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think for me personally, I do think Conquest is the best mode, but it is, I 100% agree. It's just it's hard for a lot of what the player base wants. They want Snap because it's a really quick mobile game. They don't want that experience. So
I think that's part of a lot of the complaints in the community, whether it be Alioth or Elsa or Loki or this. It's that so much of the different community wants such a wide variety of things. And people will be arguing about like what they want to see, but they want to see a fundamentally different game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're a casual player who wants to play for 5 minutes a day or like 20 minutes a day, Alioth sucks. Right? Like, that is a terribly designed card. It invalidates that 20 minutes a day you had to play. But if you're grinding at the top of a tournament, then Alioth is awesome because it gives you something else to think about and work with and do. So, like, it's what you want from the game as much as it is anything else.
It's kind of funny, kind of true. So, like, in every game that I've played, it's just an observation, not like a call out, but like the people that complain the most about a game are actually the people that care the most about a game, if you think about it, right? Like, it's because they care, they are invested, they voice their opinions very strongly. Because, like, obviously, if you don't care, you will not voice your opinions, right? So it's just very interesting. It's like the people that complain the most and like could potentially quit the game also never really quit the game because they care too much about the game, and that's why they complain. So it is kind of interesting, right? The people that complain are not happy, they can quit, but they don't because they want to keep playing the game in the direction they want to. But also at the same time, no one can completely make like second dinner cannot make everybody happy, you know. So like it's like trying to please everyone, you end up making nobody happy, right? So I do think that like second dinner has like a direction that they generally like to go to, like balancing unfun cards, for example, like Galactus, potentially Alioth, you know, that kind of thing. I think they know for sure, they know what's their market and like who they need to make happy. That's my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, like, everyone's like, they didn't nerf Loki because of money. And, like, sure, that's probably part of it. But it's also because, like you and KM were, like, unbeatable with Loki. But, like, Joe Schmo in the 50s certainly wasn't, right? Like, and there's a lot more of them than there are of you. So, like, they can balance this really fun card for, like, the 6 people who are trying to, like, win tournaments. Or they can make the larger community happy with this really fun thing that's not OP.
Yeah, it's true. Like I've come to this conclusion a long time ago that like at the end of the day, like a business is a business, and like the mass majority matters more than the minority, which is very sad, but it's fine. I'm just gonna adapt as we go along, you know.
Okay. How do you prepare for a major tournament? You know, like one this weekend that you should also tell people how to sign up for.
All right, so I did mention about it casually just now, but yeah, I have a tournament this weekend. I'm like semi nervous because like I'm never nervous about anything in Marvel Snap, even when I compete. But like this time is my first time organizing and hosting any tournament online in my life. So like, I do hope it goes well. There's probably gonna be some hiccups like expectations and whatever, but like I hope it's gonna go well. So this tournament is I call it the Lamby 1K Open in partnership with Team Rally Cry. It's a $1,000 tournament.
Oh, cool.
The tournament is day one is single elim because I know people like fast games. And day two, like the moment you make day two, you already get cash. So I feel like my philosophy is day one single elim. If you get eliminated early, okay, whatever, just carry on with your day. But day two, if you make day two, you are guaranteed cash. So I'm pretty sure once you're guaranteed cash, you would be willing to be more invested in playing a best of 3. That's my philosophy. To me, it makes sense, right? And of course, top heavy, first place $500. So yeah. So anyway, less about my tournament, more about actually preparing for a tournament in general. So I've been preparing for tournaments for like my whole life. Starting from Yu-Gi-Oh, then like physical sports, then Hearthstone, which was my career, and then Marvel Snap third party tournaments right now. And even some live Marvel Snap events where there was one that I got this thing like back in June. But yeah, anyway, so tournaments I feel in general, there is like a few things that you need to prepare for. Firstly, you need to prepare your knowledge because like at least for like Marvel Snap and card games, right? It's an information based game. Whoever has more information will be at advantage. Where by information I mean like if you go into a tournament not knowing what's popular, what everybody's playing, you don't know matchups, you don't know popular tech cards, you don't know in the last 10 hours on Twitter there was this new secret deck. You know, the more you don't know when you go into tournaments, the more you're at a disadvantage, especially when it comes to card games. So I feel like doing your homework is like super important in card games. Like rocking up to a tournament with like less things you don't know is very important in like winning a card game tournament because it's information is power, right? And of course, next thing is you got to be like when it comes to doing homework practice, you got to be like at a decent skill level as well. Like you need to know how to play your deck. You need to know how to play a matchup. You need to know you basically need to know how to do a lot of things like better than your opponent is what I'm trying to say, right? Like at the end of the day, if I go into this matchup and I know 100% of what I'm supposed to do and you only know 70% of what you're supposed to do, I'm going to capitalize on your lack of knowledge and win you in random spots, which, well, I always say this, your misplays are part of my win condition. It's true, right? We are playing against humans, right? So whenever someone misplays or makes a mistake, it's part of how you win. That's why humans versus humans is different from humans versus robots. So being well versed in like the meta and well versed in playing your decks is super important before you enter a tournament. On that note, I think I'm someone that is very big on playing good decks for a tournament because like preparing for a tournament is like, how should I put it? Firstly, you need to know everything. Secondly, you need to know how to play and what is the best deck as well because there's a reason why it's called the best deck. It's called the best deck because it's unbeatable, right? That's why it's the best at the point in time. So I test everything and then my conclusion will be like, all right, is the best deck counterable? If it's counterable, is the counter consistent in other matchups as well? If it's not, all right, let's just play the best deck and win with the best deck and win the mirrors of the best deck. It's usually how I approach it. And one last thing, I mean, I can talk about this for like your whole day, but I'm not gonna do it. So one last thing, is the mental aspect of tournaments severely underlooked because I know a lot of good players in Marvel Snap. Not gonna name names. I know a lot of good players in Marvel Snap, but a lot of them have crashed and burned in tournaments in situations. Okay, Browd is a bro.
Yeah.
Browd is a
and
bro.
We love him. We love him, and he admits it. He's just like, I just been tired. Like,
yeah. Browd is one that admits it as well. Like, but there's a lot of others. Browd is a bro. But like anyway, so there's so many good players that like crash and burn in tournaments, because playing in tournaments is about mental grind and also about mental resilience. Like, so many of these players are really good at just playing the cards, and in like a one-on-one scenario when we are not in any stake under any stakes, I need to bring my A game and best game, if not I cannot beat them, that kind of thing. But like in tournaments, a lot of people crack under the pressure, which is like when they lose like a random 4-cuber in like a semi-final, and they know that like there's cash on the line, and their brain just goes loco. They forget that they need to focus on trying to win the game. They worry about like, oh, what if I lose? There goes my cash. I spent 9 hours. If I lose now, no cash. These kind of super unnecessary thoughts. Like all these super unnecessary thoughts, unnecessary but very normal because you're human. But like all these super unnecessary thoughts clog your brain, and then you make suboptimal decisions because you are scared. You make suboptimal decisions because you cannot think clearly. Like all these things, it's a bit like the whole ladder thing. Like I mentioned earlier, like the more robotic you are, the more likely you will win these kind of things, because like you are less bound to like making like emotional decisions, which in tournaments is very, very, very common, because emotional decisions or like fearful decisions are what like dictates like why a good player can like lose randomly a lot of the time. So I think taking care of your mental for tournaments, which is like legit, just sleep so you can think clearly. Don't play under stressful conditions. Like if you are not feeling comfortable in your like environment, just can go and find a comfortable environment to play your tournament. These very basic human situations, human things that have nothing to do with actually playing the card games, actually really affect the outcome of like doing well in a tournament. And I think it's severely underlooked.
So, like, that's so beyond true. And it's an extra reason to practice, because as you get more fatigued, more distracted, more stressed, your muscle memory becomes more important.
Yes.
Your ability to like know what you've done, and this is teacher stuff, right? Like this is how kids take high stakes tests. So I think about this kind of stuff all the time. But the more practiced you are, the more it feels routine and the less it feels intimidating. I'd rather you feel bored with the decisions you're making than you feel stressed by the decisions you're making, because a stressed mind can't understand what it's doing, and the bored mind just goes into autopilot. And if you've practiced enough, your autopilot is at least better than your freak out, oh my god, I overthought it for 20 minutes. Ideally, you're neither, and you can remain focused. But in a long tournament, everyone loses focus once in a while, and you need that muscle memory to fall back on.
I need to add like one point really quickly to what you just said before I forget, which is like it's 100% true. I think you literally hit the nail on the head, which is the muscle memory. I've talked about this randomly on streams before as well. Like people always ask me on streams, like I literally have incorporated the discipline of preparing a tournament into my lifestyle, which is crazy. Because like people have asked me on streams before, like when someone snaps you, why do you still click retreat later? Right? You know that one. So my answer to that is that like I don't want to be in a situation in a tournament under stress where I instinctively accidentally click retreat now, because we all know retreat later in a tournament is correct, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
So I always click retreat later in any game as far as I can. On stream, off stream, high stakes, no stakes, ladder, conquest. I always click retreat later because, like you said, muscle memory. I want to minimize the amount of accidental errors I can like make in a tournament, that kind of thing. So I know it sounds like super try hard, but I'm not even gonna lie, I'm a try hard. Like I incorporate being a try hard into my lifestyle, and if it's not affecting me negatively, it's actually affecting me positively when I play tournaments, by the way. Like I think there has been like one time in my Marvel Snap life that I lost a bit of my cool. Like one time in 6 months. That's how little times I've like not lost my shit in tournaments, basically. And compared to a lot of other players, right, I think this is something that like they don't think about, or like they don't realize that like it's affecting them. Yeah, so muscle memory is important.
All right, Peaceful, what are your Zen tips for preparing for a major tournament?
So I don't have a ton to add because Lammy did a really good job summarizing that. I do want to say one thing, and I'm going to give Lammy some more shout outs. That if you enjoy what we're kind of going over here, Lammy has a series on his channel. I do help him with it, called Next Level Snap, and he actually has an episode already up there called Tournament Prep. where he goes into a lot more detail on it. I'm just going to grab a couple things from there that have really impacted me that I make sure that I'm just using in my day-to-day life when I stream for a long time, when I do anything that's going to take a long time and I'm going to suffer from mental fatigue. I've implemented these steps, and that's one. Like he said,
sorry, let
getting
me
a good
add one
night's
thing
rest.
to that first. Sorry. Let me add one thing to that, which is Peaceful hasn't helped me a bit. He has helped me a lot with this series, okay, guys? A lot, because I'm technologically like trash. I'm not even gonna deny. So he's helped me a lot with this series. Anyway, yeah,
Thank
continue.
you. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. I've learned so much. It's been a blast to do. But yeah, so get good rest. Drink a ton of water. And one of my favorite things to do is between every round, as long as I have the time, I get up and I go outside of my house and I walk, and I just take like a short, like 2 to 3 minute walk and just clear my head and find something to do other than think about whatever, like Snap or whatever game it is I'm playing, because those things, just clearing your head and like getting in that good headspace and kind of letting yourself compartmentalize a little bit and detach yourself from maybe you had a bad game, or we even talked about maybe you had a really good game and you don't want to get kind of full on yourself and be like, well, going into the next one and you're not as focused because that game felt so easy and you just steamrolled your opponent, but then you go into the next game and you're not thinking through your plays and you make a mistake. So make sure you're giving yourself that time to compartmentalize. Don't ever get too high and never get too low, and just try and take care of yourself in that way.
Awesome. All right, guys, we have a whole other slide of questions that we're not doing today because we killed that one. But I'm officially just inviting you guys back in November. Pick a time that works for you. We will make it happen, and we will just go over those two, and then we'll have another tournament to go over.
All right.
All right. So I want to look at the top 8 decks from this week's tournament. It's the Impulse Pro Series tournament, which means it's a big money tournament. I don't remember how much, but it was like one of the bigger tournaments. 1K, over 200 entries. Lamby casted it with tons of friends of the cast, like Brad Saffer, Super Tech God guest. I watched like 80% of the tournament. The top 4 gets into some huge invitational in-person tournament happening at some vague point next year. So like this was extremely high stakes, and I think looking at the top 8 decks, the choices in it and what decisions are made is going to be valuable for our listeners. Everybody ready? Oh, this isn't a tournament deck. This is just a deck I want to talk about. The first 2 are, this is the Lamby Rogue Elsa deck, the bounce deck. We did not see this place well in the tournament, and I think I know why not, but I'd like to discuss why not.
Yeah, so I did mention I was very reserved about this deck, like after my first like promotion of the deck, because I know why this deck doesn't do as well as I know it can. Okay, but firstly, I did say that like I hope at least one would make it to the top 8, but none. But Elsa did make it to the top 8, but this exact like bounce-ish deck didn't make it in the top 8. So the main reason why is I feel like Marvel Snap in general, this is gonna sound like a broken record because a lot of what I'm saying is just like get good. But okay, anyway, so Marvel Snap in general is not a complex card game. Like if you've played other card games before, you will realize that this is not a complex card game. Most decks in Marvel Snap are not difficult to play. So this deck is one of the few decks in Marvel Snap that I feel like if you are not actually good at the game, you will not win with this deck. Like it's very clear cut. So it's like one of the few decks. So I think Loki is very close to this as well, by the way. Loki's win rate is actually better if you are good at the game. Legit. So I think this deck is super technical and super low margin for error, which is bounce in general is actually very low margin for error because it's a very paper deck. When I mean paper, I mean like it's a deck that's very like the wind blows and it like flies away kind of deck. It's very it dies to a lot of things. But at the same time, it is very flexible, which means that you can allocate points almost anywhere. You can energy cheat. You can win with combinations that your opponent doesn't even fathom, like combinations of cards. So like for Marvel Snap deck, there is so much freedom of expression compared to any other deck in the game. So this deck, right, as much as it didn't do well in that tournament, I still think that like if I were to actually play in that tournament instead of cast it, I would bring this deck because like there's too many ways you can win in an open deck list format. Like in a closed deck list format, I might not bring this because like I said, it's a paper deck. Like the wind blows, the Shadow King comes by, I don't know the Shadow King is there, I lose, for example. But like in an open deck list format where I have perfect information as to like what is the counter to this deck, when I think they will play this counter because I know it's in the deck. And like all the choke points, I call it choke points, like when the deck stops functioning, that's a choke point. Like when I know all the different choke points of my deck versus your deck because I can see your 12 cards. This kind of deck with absolute flexibility allows me to play my best game because I know exactly what I need to do at any given point in time because I know what is in your deck. So, like, I was a bit upset that, like, I couldn't participate and cast, which was a bit sad. But, like, if I could, I would have, like, brought this and then, like, hopefully did well. And then if not, I jump onto the caster desk. But yeah, so this is basically why I feel like this deck is severely underrated right now because it's really a difficult deck to play in Marvel Snap standards. So yeah, that's basically my pitch on this deck still.
Say this deck is still very good. There's this weird thing that happens in all card games that it amuses me to no end. And it's when a deck is nerfed. And this deck's been, let's be real, this deck's been nerfed multiple times in the last few months, right? I mean, like, they just nerfed Kitty again. And there's this thing in players' heads where I think when a deck gets nerfed as bad as this deck has gotten nerfed, people are like, oh, it's not good. It's not good anymore. They nerfed that deck. Oh, that deck's been nerfed. That deck's been nerfed. And you see that, you saw this really commonly in Demon Hunter in the last year in Hearthstone, where the class was super broken. Like, there was all these broken cards, and they kept nerfing the cards, but the cards were still just really broken because the cards started out on such a high rate. Something like Kitty is a great example in Snap, where it started out as a 1/0 that got +2 every turn. Then it was a 1/2 that got +1, and every time they changed it, it was still just really good. And look, Elsa comes out, and Kitty is a 1/0 now, and she's still just really good in certain builds of Elsa decks because she just gives you so many procs on Elsa. She gives you procs on Angela. She just has synergies with things like Bass. There's just so many things you can do. And I think that's a lot of what you see with this deck is I don't even necessarily know that it's like pilots can't handle playing it in a tournament as it is. People just don't bring it because they're like, oh, well, this deck's nerfed. It's not as powerful as it used to be. If you're not doing your preparation, like Lamby talked about for tournament prep, you're not going to realize how good this deck is into a lot of things. Like, I can't tell you how many times people have been like, well, how do you play a deck like that? It just loses to wave. And I'm like, have you ever played a bounce deck? It does not lose to wave once you know it's there. It just doesn't. You use your brain and you play in a certain way to where you don't lose to wave. But it's just, I do think that's a big part of why this deck's not seeing more play right now because it is very, very good. I've played it quite a bit myself.
I just want to add two things really quickly. First one is, so you don't actually have to force yourself to play this exact build because this exact build is tailored to me very specifically. I like to play. Okay, I wouldn't say I like to play the game on hard mode, but you can make your life a lot easier by just cutting the beast for Mobius. Your life becomes superbly easier. But of course, you drop the power ceiling a bit. I run this build specifically because I know what to do versus stack cards, and I don't want to compromise my power. So that is why I run this specific build. But of course, if you really want to make your life slightly easier, just play Mobius over Beast. It's gonna be you just steamroll wave as long as you know how to play this deck. If you have Mobius. But yeah. Oh, sorry.
Thank you for the song. All right, I'll jump in while Lamby takes care of that.
All right, I'm good.
Oh, he's back. Go for it. Go be back.
No, I just didn't. Yeah, okay, but anyway, oh crap, I lost my point. But yeah, I think the second thing I wanted to say is that Peaceful mentioned something which is Elsa makes this deck strong, right? I do completely agree, which is I think the analogy and the way to look at bounce is that it's I've been putting up good win rates with the deck even before Elsa, but actually with the introduction of Elsa into this deck, it's not about playing. It's not like bounce now with Elsa is the hard mode deck. It's actually bounce now with Elsa is actually playing the hard mode deck on easy mode because Elsa makes this deck a lot easier to play. Right, you don't really need to worry too much about specific pinpoint exact point allocation. With Elsa, you have a bit more freedom, which is all right, I have a +3 every single turn. I don't need to play this super perfectly. I have some room of error because Elsa is just too busted. So I feel Elsa's introduction into the game for this deck is giving people more room for error. And I've also experienced and felt that I can sometimes make a bit suboptimal plays and still win because Elsa is just busted.
So I have 2 points. First, what I think Mobius did in the meta, we thought it was going to take Sarah out of the meta, but what it actually took out of the meta was Wave.
Oh, yes.
Because Wave just doesn't exist now. So you can get away with not running Mobius even if you are scared of Wave because you're probably not going to run into much Wave. But the other thing I think is important, or my main point for this deck, is without Mobius and just in general, I think this deck really struggles into good Loki.
Struggles into good Loki.
So if they can get their Loki off on turn 3 or 4, their combo goes off. Like, they get enough early power, and I think their combo goes off really, really effectively. I think one of the ways that Loki is really powerful is double Elsa is completely freaking insane.
Agreed.
And if they can get that extra Elsa for 1, and they have their Elsa for 2, right? Like, at that point, everything they do is +6, and that's just, it's insane. Like, I don't know how to beat that anymore. Like, if they get Iron Man, that's obviously a different thing, right? But like, just if they have a kitty that gets +6 every time it's played, they're suddenly so much harder to beat.
Okay, so this is quite funny because once again, Pulse nails it on the head again, which is when I'm playing this deck, like, I actually lose more to decks that actually put more power than me than the tech card decks, which is like you said, like if Loki steals all your stuff and does it before you or more efficiently than you and gets more power than you, like double Elsa, 4 energy Iron Man, it's actually more difficult to win that than tech cards. Like in terms of a good player perspective, right? It's more difficult to win when they just put out more points than you for cheap than winning tech cards. Because tech cards usually are generally low powered things. As long as you know how to play around it, you make their tech cards super awkward, right? Like there's so many times that like people have to Shadow King me on turn 5 because they know that I'm not gonna fall for the big final turn Shadow King, that kind of thing. So like it's easier to play around those. But like if they just scale taller than you, and if you look at this deck, it literally has, I mean, the only way it gets taller than an opponent is Iron Man, like a lot of the time. Like if the deck doesn't have but like if they take your Iron Man, well, they get taller than you for cheaper. So yeah, that's a good point to note. That's all I wanted to add.
Cool. Let's go. You wanted to talk about this deck? I've never even seen it. This is a Chokui? 6 and 2,
I think.
Chokyu. Okay, 6 and 2. Out of the cut on strength of schedule, the 9th place deck. It is a Sandman ramp deck that's running Ebony Maw in the 1 spot. I'm gonna tell you what change I would make, and you can all yell at me after you talk about it for a little bit.
All right, so I mean, when you ask me about like decks that I would like to highlight outside of the top 8, this one is quite interesting because I thought Sandman Ram would see higher representation because of like all the Elsa and like Spamage decks around. And this kind of deck is like easy to play also, right? Like at most levels. So I thought this would be a bit more like present. Okay, maybe it was present, but I didn't do very well. But this particular build is so greedy. It's like
Yes,
so greedy. Like we haven't seen Ebony Maw in a while, right? In Marvel Snap, but like this one, I mean, like in non Shuri Soren, like in Ramp, we haven't seen Ebony Maw in a while, but like this one, honestly, can afford to do it because you play Doom Odin, you play Leader, you play Zola Panther. Like I feel like that Ebony Maw lane is like never safe, right, for your opponent. Like even if you play Ebony Maw on 1, right, they cannot reliably say like, oh, we won that lane with 8 power. It's like quite impossible because like literally half of your deck adds a random stat down there, or like a random 64 Panther, which is like huge. So like this I mean, the natural predator to Spamage decks is Sandman. Of course, Sandman on turn 5 is slow. You really need to Sandman on turn 4 at minimum to like do something. And I think also, I guess one reason why this deck didn't like actually do better is that like the lack of early game is concerning, right? Like in a meta that like puts out so much early stats, like if you know that they are Sandman deck, you just don't play kitty stuff, you just buff everything else with Elsa that doesn't go back to your hand, and they are in trouble. So something to really consider. I mean this deck is something to consider, but I feel like it can get blown out very randomly if the Spamage decks just get a running start.
Major issue with this deck is I know like you're a ramp deck, like your turn 6 definitely matters on what you draw, but I just feel like anytime you're running a ramp deck without Chavez, like I see a lot of people do it, and I know there's data to back up that those decks do perform decently well. I just don't get it, because your most important cards you need to have by turn 3, and you're just so unlikely to have, like, you're so much more unlikely to have them without a Chavez in the deck. It just, I don't know. I look at this deck every time and I'm just like, why is Chavez not in here? I agree with Lamby. This list looks really greedy to me, but I love the trend we've seen of Wong starting to make it into these Black Panther Arnim Zola decks, because it's just such a nice curve and gives you such a really high top end. It just, I don't know how you get away with doing that right now with so much Alioth running around. But
that's what I was going to say. Like, what does Wong do? Like, the Wong Zola package just seems wrong to me right now. There's Alioth is in what, 60% of the top decks. Like, so you're just saying, and you're only putting power in that one lane, right? Like, I guess that's what Ebony Maw is for, to pray that you can get priority, but you're likely only putting power in that one lane, so you basically never have priority. Like, I don't get it. I think a lot of what these want to do is they want to go heavier on 5s and run Psylocke. They want to run America and Psylocke, because this whole deck is get Sandman out on 4. Otherwise, you have trouble.
Yeah, Vision Vision's also good.
Yeah, you run Vision, you run probably a Devil Dino, and then, like, you cut a little bit of the top end. Like, you cut Panther, you cut Zola, and probably Wong, and you just say, like, now I'm going to, because I have America and I have all these things, I'm more likely to get Sandman out early, and when I don't, I still have a game plan.
I agree. I actually like this deck with more 5s. Like, I played Devil Dino in my version of this deck. Like, it's just big. And I like whatever it is. I feel like whatever 5s or 4. I even play Iron Lad to high roll sometimes. But like whatever it is, I agree. Which is like, I think moving away from Panther Zola might be the better direction, because those are very reliant on like perfect world scenarios, right? And I feel like with Alioth in the game, it's even harder to get your perfect world scenario, because everyone has Alioth, right? And with Wong, you know where a lot of things are going as well, which like it like makes things easier for your opponent to predict.
Yeah. On ladder, I actually really, really like Professor X in these ramp style lists, because it's just, you get so many surprise, like they don't play around it, they don't think you're gonna do it, and then it just makes it really easy to get them with that turn 4 Professor X, and then you can, play like leader on 5, and then you just Alioth whichever lane you're ahead in, because you got that Professor X lane locked down, and it just felt really good to me if you're going to play ramp. But I do feel like Sandman is kind of awkwardly positioned, because like Lammy said, if you're playing it on 5, it's just too slow, and if you're not playing it on 4, it's just never fast enough. And a lot of times they can get far enough ahead if they've already got that lane set up with 3 units in it, and they can just keep playing their move cards into that lane. They just don't care. So I don't love Sandman right now in general against the Elsa decks.
I'd like the Professor X play, but then your Sunspot really needs to be Nebula. And I'm telling you, Psylocke is like the secret sauce in this. With Psylocke and America, you have like 97% chance. I did the math a million years ago. You have like a 97% chance to see a ramp card by turn 3.
Which is nice, but the only thing I don't like about Psylocke is you really need the ramp like every turn. But I guess if you're going heavier on 5s, you can
exactly. You're going 5/5/6 instead of, and like if your second 5 is Arrow and then your last one is Odin into Arrow, right? Like, there's ways to make it work.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going. We've got our first top 8 deck. We're going to talk about several Loki decks. So I don't want to actually talk about this one, because we're going to talk about 2 more that made the top 4. So instead, let's where is Loki's placement in the meta? Is it a problem for tournaments now that tournaments are really back?
I do think that Loki actually is quite a high skill cap deck. Like I mentioned, Bounce is a high skill cap deck, right? This one is like, I think, a high skill cap deck that is less like paper. Once again, paper means like if the wind blows, it just flies, so it's vulnerable. That's my explanation of it. But like, Loki's a bit less vulnerable, because Loki doesn't have to run a complete 12 cards well-tuned engine that works together, which is bounce. Loki's a bit more flexible, which means you can run like some tech cards and like still get away with things, because at the end of the day, your core purpose is to play the Loki and then get low costed cards and then dump it all, whether you have a collector or even now Elsa on board. Like the whole Angela Elsa collector thing is like the mini bounce package, which is you just play early stats and then you add on to those, like these are, I call these hard carries, right? They snowball, and then like once you snowball, then you play Loki, and like you already have stats on the board. Whatever cheap stuff you get from your opponent, you don't care, you just dump it to add on to the stats on the board. So that's essentially the Loki game plan. I think the one thing about Loki is that because Mobius is a card, right? So your timing of your Loki needs to change right now, because last time you can just straight up greed it. But now, like, if you see that there is no Mobius, you might just want to slam your Loki, get your discounts. Yeah, just slam it, right, before they play Mobius. Also, another thing to note is that with the Elsa in the deck, we also see like this build that's like Mariah Hill. Mariah Hill is insane in Loki, by the way. Like, I always joke that like my Mariah Hill always gets collector, but that's a joke, obviously. But like, Mariah Hill gets you what? Collector, Angela, Elsa, literally the 3 cards that I call hard carries, right? It gets you like random Luke, random Shadow King. I've gotten Daredevil and won with it before. It's hilarious. But like, it's Mariah Hill is so perfect in this deck, and like I was a bit upset that I didn't notice this off the get, like at the get go, and I had to like wait for someone to remind me that it's good. But like yeah, I think Loki is well positioned because like it can do like obviously the energy cheat stuff. It has the Angela Collector Elsa, which is like the mini hard carry package in like many good decks outside of Collector, of course. But like, you can get to run tech cards, as you can see here, Luke Cage, Mobius. I don't even think you need both, but you can run it because there is space. So yeah, I think Loki is just like the recipe for a good deck.
So I am in love with, I believe it was Swen's idea. I cut Luke Cage in all of mine and I just run Falcon.
Same.
I love Falcon in these decks. It's so good. It's just like, oh, my collector's already a 6 and I haven't even Loki'd yet. That's nice.
So,
all right, go for it.
Okay, I was real quick. I just want to add a little. It's interesting how, like, I think when Loki first came out and everyone was playing it, the Loki wasn't a hard deck to play because you'd get collectors and Lokis from your opponent's Loki. You'd get all these things that already synergize with your deck, and then boom, you'd have this insane board, and like that's when everybody I think was at the height of like complaining about Loki. You know, the first couple weeks after when everybody was playing it, as he's kind of just become another part of the metagame and his metagame share has gone down. It's like Lamby was talking about. It actually is a very difficult deck to pilot, and I've won a lot of games against Loki decks because they don't like. I don't know. It's like they don't understand. Like I'll be playing Thanos, and I have a bunch of big, expensive cards, and I have Mobius in play, and they play their Loki, and suddenly lock themselves into playing one card on turn 6, and like that was just not the correct play. Whereas someone like Lammy would know, oh, okay, this is Thanos. They're gonna have a bunch of expensive cards. They already have Loki out. I shouldn't play in this way. I need to save my Loki for turn 6 to buff my collector. That's what he's for. And it's just that it's a deck that you need to know the matchups. You need to know a lot of different things to play it optimally. And I actually think it's funny. I've kind of gone for being like, when are they going to finally nerf Loki to like Loki's just kind of, if they're going to leave Mobius at 2, Loki's just kind of fine.
Great. So can I argue for never nerfing Loki? He's a deck to himself.
Yeah.
Like how often, it's very rare in Marvel Snap that they just add a brand new deck, right?
Yeah.
Like Loki is an archetype, and without Loki or with a worse Loki, that archetype ceases to exist.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth having, even if it's very powerful, make other things powerful. It's worth it to have the extra archetype.
Well, and Mobius helps a lot. Just
lot.
Having a card like Mobius to curtail the mana cheat makes a big difference. Like, look, this guy isn't even running Quinjet.
Yep. No one is anymore. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it.
I've actually cut Quinjet myself. Also, just want to give a shout out to the whole Swen like Falcon thing. It's so cool. It's so genius. Like I don't know. I didn't think about it, but it's like so genius. Like I'm even running Falcon. Like I'm literally running Falcon in bounce, and I never run Falcon in bounce because like I don't think it's good until Elsa. But now like with Elsa, the whole Falcon is just crazy. Like especially in Loki, it's super stonks as well because like it just buffs like Pisu said. Like Glazer said. Like it just buffs collector without even playing Loki, and you have this whole like super strong backup win condition, which is like your early game is already so strong with this deck, right? Like I said, Angela, Collector, Elsa is so strong. And then you just throw the Loki in there, whether you end up using Loki, like I feel like with this early shell, like you can literally use Loki as like a turn 6 collector buffer and nobody's upset.
Yep.
Because it's like you play a 3/5 and then you play collector. Like it's just so much stats even if you don't see the actual usage of the cards that you steal from Loki, which is mad.
It's pretty easy when your Snowguard is a 1/8, right? Because you falconed it back and then you played it again as the 4th card. Like it's a real nice feeling. Like it's just, I don't like the Bishop ad, but I love the Falcon ad.
The funny thing is I actually don't mind the Bishop as well, but like yeah, it's like
fine.
the least significant addition.
It's in over Coulson, and like Coulson just gives you cards that win you the game way more often than it feels like he should.
Okay.
And I want the extra 2 cards for Loki on top of that. Like, it's 2 power for Collector, it's 2 cards for Loki, and then, like, it's Valkyrie. And you're just like, oh, well, I guess I can just play that and win. Like, it's nice.
Yeah, or Iron Man.
Yeah, or Iron Man, yeah.
Or, yeah. But what about when it's stature? What about that?
I mean, then you don't play it, right? Like, it's still fine.
I'm just kidding. I'm being.
It gave me Shang with the stature. We're fine.
Yeah.
All right.
That's awesome.
The move Alioth deck. This is everywhere right now. This deck is everywhere right now. It's basically the Lamby smooth, Silky Smooth deck, except it's got Alioth in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cosmo in this version.
Should I go? Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna open with this deck. So like we'll talk about this version first. So one thing I really like. Okay, firstly, what I don't like Cosmo, Shang-Chi, and Alioth in the same deck. It's very weird to me. Like I've never been the guy to like play Armor, Cosmo, and Shang in the same deck. Like I know they used to do that in Thanos, and it was very cringe for me because like I feel like it just isolates yourself from doing too much things. So I'm never really the guy that likes Armor and Shang or like Armor and Cosmo in the same deck. Obviously, if it's like a closed deck list surprise thing, like I guess once in a while it works out, but I'm not a fan of it. But anyway, so this deck, as with how Silky Smooth is, it's just like a initiative machine, right? Like you just literally almost always have initiative, and I'm like super like in love with Cosmo in general in Silk right now, because like the Silk deck doesn't have any on reviews. I mean it does, but like it's like on reviews that like you don't care that don't trigger. Like Spider-Man's a 3/5. Of course you care about Legion triggering, but you get my point. My point is that most of the deck is just like stats. So Cosmo counters so much in the meta, but hurts you so little, like in this deck. So as much as I mean Cosmo and Alioth kind of weird, but like the point of this deck is that you actually just don't really want to like get behind. You're always ahead. So while being always ahead in the early game, you just kind of mean that Cosmo always finds a target, like to snipe like an on reveal or whatever. So also I like Legion in this kind of decks because like mid range decks like this, like just like stats and points decks. Legion is super like, I don't know. There are so many games that like I feel like Silky Smooth is just a deck that is just stats into Legion.deck. Like it's just stats into Legion.deck, right? A lot of the time, and I think Legion is just perfect in this kind of deck.
You notice what card's missing?
Yeah, I know. I just initially ignored it, but like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't understand what the miles over Elsa here, but other than that, I do love this deck.
No, Glazer's talking about Chavez.
No. Well, God, yes. I was talking about Chavez. But once you said Elsa, I was happy to move on to Elsa. Because like Elsa with Cosmo seems like a sick combo for this deck.
Yes, it is. It is very sick.
But yeah, why are we not running Chavez?
I guess they don't value the 2 costs as highly, but like it's actually very important to get your 2 costs.
Like, so
I guess if you're worried the most about drawing Alioth, then it kind of makes sense because you want to make sure you have that. But I still don't. I don't get it.
But like this deck doesn't need Alioth to win.
That's the only explanation, right? Is that you want that turn 6 chance to draw your Alioth. That gives you that one extra draw at Alioth. But that's the only card it helps in this entire deck. So I don't get it.
It helps Shang.
Yeah. Okay, Shang-Chi. That's fair. But like we were talking about, like already with this deck, is you want priority anyway. So like you know. Like, I don't know. I think curving out is so important. And hitting Angela and Craven early is so important. And I don't get that either. I actually missed. I was so annoyed that Elsa wasn't in it that I completely missed that Chavez wasn't in it. I don't understand not running Elsa in this deck.
So,
Especially you have Nightcrawler and Jeff
and Cosmo.
You have Silk.
That's so nasty.
Vision as well.
There's so many good synergies in this deck with Elsa. I mean, like you should just be running Elsa, people. Just put Elsa in your deck, please.
Yeah.
If you have lower cost cards, play Elsa.
So hey, here's my Elsa argument in a nutshell. Remember when we all played Lizard forever because it was a 2/5 and 2/5 is crazy stats? That's like a really bad Elsa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like really sad.
It's
Elsa.
like the flip opposite Elsa.
Yeah. Like
unnerf poor Lizard, please.
Yeah. I want to
poor Lizard.
talk a bit about like my version of the deck, like because I think I made this deck better, which is like I think Glazer said also, which is cut Alioth. Like it's very weird, right? But like I run Kitty and Elsa and I cut Alioth because like this deck at its core actually can realistically say it almost never loses to Alioth because you pile so much stats plus you run Cosmo, but by the time it's turn 6, you already won. That's my pitch is that on turn 6 you already won. Not exactly you always win, but like the amount of stats you have on the board like easily dodges Alioth because you move stuff around as well, right? So I cut like the Shang, the Alioth, the mouse. I played Chavez, Kitty, Elsa. Basically, what I wanted to do with the deck is that like you are playing this deck with like one goal in mind, which is you never fall behind. Like if you never fall behind and you have Cosmo, right, you probably beat every deck because like you just play a lot of stats and then you Cosmo their Taskmaster, you Cosmo their Doom, you Cosmo their Alioth, you know, that kind of thing. So like I feel like also the funny thing is like everyone expects you to have Alioth, like if from a Conquest ladder and Conquest perspective. So like the fact that you don't have Alioth doesn't really hurt that much, but like you know, it's just interesting. But like I think this deck is best approached from a Elsa abuse angle. Like there's like literally so many cards, right? Like you said, Jeff, Nightcrawler, Vision, Silk, the Cosmo protecting your Angelas from Shadow King, that kind of thing. So I feel like maybe also one thing why I don't run Alioth is because like I want to run Kitty, and Kitty with Elsa is like superb synergy, and like I always found it very weird to have a Kitty in your deck when you're playing Alioth. So I guess that's why it's not here. But like I think if we go the Kitty route, it's actually more stats and you have Cosmo for protection, so you don't actually need Alioth.
So Lamby,
my argument, about Alioth being a fine card is that there are strategies that just naturally counter winning one lane, like winning one lane with Alioth, and then it's just, I guess that's what bothers me about people. I think sometimes people just don't want to have to think about how you beat that card. Like if you're tired of losing to Alioth, play Move. Move destroys Alioth decks. It really does. Its bad matchups are other things. It's not Alioth. Yeah. Yep.
So it seems halfway decent here. Not good. Halfway decent if you're like really bad at the Alioth match. Add a Goose. Your whole deck goes under Goose.
Oh, yeah, true.
Except for Legion. I mean, even Vision, you can move over to the Goose lane if you need to.
Right. And like, God, you should not have to with Angela and Killmonger, right? And sorry, not Killmonger, Craven. But like, just I feel like if you're sick of losing to Alioth with this kind of deck, don't run him. Just throw a Goose in and call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually heard this pitch before. I forgot when and where, but like it wasn't good when I heard it, but now I think it makes sense. I forgot why it wasn't good when I heard it, but yeah.
So like you wouldn't run Shang then, and you probably don't run Miles because what's his name is everywhere, but that's your Elsa spot, right? And like Elsa means you're getting too big for them. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know, it just seems so easy. All right, so whatever. I could be wrong.
Another random thing. Another card I've really liked against Alioth is Jean Grey. I don't know if y'all have tried the move deck with Jean Grey. It's actually pretty cool how many things it messes up for your opponent if they're not playing a very similar style deck. Because you just, like I said, you have Cosmo, you have these move cards that you can play into an Elsa lane and get buffed, and you can also just fill up a lane with Jeff or with Vision. And then you're no longer locked into the Jean Grey lane, and you can play elsewhere, whereas they have to play there a lot. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with Jean Grey in this. I think she's gotten a lot better with the addition of Elsa to the game.
I completely agree.
Plus, I get to use my super sweet spotlight variant, Jean Grey, and she's been sitting there gathering dust, so that makes me happy.
My win rate with Jean remains really high. I feel like people
just aren't familiar with her. Yeah.
They just thought they should put her in decks, and that was never what you should do with her. It's like you build things that make sense. All right. So I heard Lamby at least accepting of an argument that Shuri Red Skull was like the best deck in the game a couple days ago. And
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
Okay, so this best deck in the game is like two things. Is firstly, I feel like this best deck is a very big shout out to like general population best deck. Because I feel like when it comes to
I can tell.
Yeah, it's a general populous best deck thing. Because this deck is, I feel, has the most inevitability in a Marvel Snap deck right now. Like if you draw the good cards, it just wins kind of deck, right? Like Sauron, Shuri, Red Skull, Taskmaster. It's like 9 unbeatable, and also no one plays Shang. Like legit, no one plays Shang anymore. Most people. So, this deck has a lot of inevitability. It's a lot of simple points. It's like unaffected by most tech cards. Most, not all, but most tech cards. So, I feel like, okay. So personally, I've actually like. Maybe I'm just crazy, but like I do a lot of experimentation on my own. Like I brought this to a tournament despite knowing that I can play better things, or like based on my skill level or whatever. But I brought this to a tournament recently, and I finished top 8. Just by only making 2 decisions, which is dodging Shanks or Alioths and 50-50 Taskmasters. Like I had literally 2 decisions for like 6 rounds. So this deck actually is like beauty in simplicity, which is that like you can focus a lot on playing good battle mode, right, with this deck, because you don't have to worry too much about like making optimal like play lines, different optimal play lines every game. You don't have to worry about like not finding your win conditions, because the win condition is clear. So I think there is a lot of benefit to bringing something so simple into a tournament as well, which is because like it doesn't punish not playing perfectly, which is actually a real consideration, by the way. Like you don't have to always do the complex thing to win. Like sometimes doing the simple thing wins as well. And like this deck is so simple that it's like it's good simple. How should I put it? It's like it's so simple and so good that like anyone can win with this. And I feel like it cannot be overlooked. You cannot overlook the fact that like simplicity sometimes is just correct and like just good. So that's why I really value this deck in a tournament setting. Like I would trust my life with this deck if I'm on my off day. You know, like I'm on like a bad day and I still want to compete. I will just shamelessly bring this deck and just destroy people, hopefully, with my 50-50 calls or whatever. But like there's really some beauty in simplicity, and I think this deck is like simple and very like high power level, and I think it's perfect for a tournament. You don't have to do anything complex sometimes. Just do simple things and win.
It's like you said, I think the nice thing about this deck is that the actual play lines are simple enough that it gives you more time to think about what your opponent's going to do. Because this deck really can't, like, you have vision to play around Shang, and sometimes Shadow King, if they're smart, they can get you a Shadow King a lot of times anyway. But it's also really good. One of the things I've always appreciated about Shuri decks is it's really good at throwing Prio if you need to, because you can stack that Shuri lane, so you're always behind. And then going into the last turn, you have vision if you're worried about Alioth, things like that. There's ways to play around everything in the metagame without it having to change a single card from before Alioth came out, from before all this stuff came out. So Shuri's just, it's like Lammy said, it's just a very consistent deck, and you always know what you need to do, so you can take that extra time to play around what your opponent's trying to do.
So here's my problem with the deck, ultimately. It's the anti-synergy between specifically Mobius and Sauron, because you need Mobius, at least in my opinion, to beat Loki and bounce. If you don't have Mobius and they're running Beast or get a good Loki off, and all of your stuff is -1, you're in a lot of trouble. But then it's hard to play Sauron, because like if you don't play Sauron and they're playing Iron Man, you're in a massive amount of trouble.
Yeah.
So, like, but then you have to have curved out Mobius, Sauron, Shuri. And, like, that's just such a big ask.
The funny thing is, your argument is good. It's just that, from my personal opinion, like, when I... Okay, firstly, Bounce is not that popular, sadly, but true. But when I play Bounce, right, like...
But Loki is.
Yeah, No, I mean like the Iron Man argument. Because like the funny thing is like when I was playing Bounce, actually, remember we were mentioning that whole argument about like Bounce loses more to like decks that actually get more points than them. Like this
Mhm.
deck, right? Like if I don't actually have the Iron Man on curve, I actually lose to this deck a fair share amount of times because it's just like so much points. And okay,
Yeah.
the Mobius argument I understand because I think it's very valid. But it's like I think it's a worthy sacrifice. Like if you don't have, if you're okay, I mean like it's more like if you have Sauron on 3, I guess the downside of having a useless Mobius is fine because like a lot of the losing in this deck is actually not having Sauron on 3 because Sauron on 3 just lets you like
Go
okay,
off.
well playing Typhoid Mary with her effect is horrible, and not being able to play your 1/7 Ebony Maw is also horrible. So I feel like Sauron on 3 is like one of the biggest. I don't want to say it's more important than Shuri because I don't actually know the factual numbers, but it always feels like not having Sauron on 3 is worse than not having Shuri on 4 to me.
I agree, because like when you have Sauron, you can
Yeah.
just go Typhoid Mary, Red Skull, Taskmaster, Ebony Maw, and like that's still so many stats. And the thing about what you're talking about, Glazer, that is easy to forget is like you're playing against Loki, right? And sometimes they're gonna high roll you. But sometimes they're going to Loki, and then they're going to get an Ebony Maw that they can't play. They're going to get a Typhoid Mary that messes up their whole board if they don't have Luke Cage in their deck, and they miss on Sauron, and they miss on Shuri, and suddenly they have a bunch of cards that are way worse for them than they are for you. So even though they might be getting them at a slight discount, like you just don't care because your cards are better. It's kind of like a similar thing to you run into a lot with when High Evo, when you play against High Evo with Loki, where you Loki their stuff, and it's just yours are worse because yours are the base cards and they have the evolved ones. So it's not as cut and dry as, oh, well, if they have Loki, you lose if you don't play Mobius. You have to both not have Mobius and they have to hit the nuts, which does happen. You do high roll them sometimes, and you get the Shuri and the Red Skull, but
they don't have to hit the
doesn't
nuts.
always happen.
They have to hit. I feel like they have to hit 0. They have to do it on turn 4 or 5, right? Like 4 is a super ideal because you really, really want to get Sauron down on 5 if you have Sauron, and then like you're just like, okay, let's go. Like, and you can easily generally play like a Sauron and other stuff that turn, and then like your last turn, everything is so cheap, right? Like. You're like, all right, so I've got a free Ebony Maw, free 0/7 at that point. Like, you need Sauron or 0, and I feel like it usually works out pretty well. Like, I felt... I've played a lot of the matchup, because I don't really play Shuri Red Skull. I think it's... Like, I will not spend my limited time playing this game being bored to death. It's just not going to happen. So, like, but I think Loki is so fun, so I play a lot of Loki, and, like, I just feel like it's not hard. Like, it's not easy. It's not an auto win, right? Like, but I don't think it's like more than 55-45. But like, it's still reasonably good for you.
Yeah.
Just add one thing, which is that like, okay, I literally just want to say that like the best feeling in the world with this deck, like to me, is playing 1/7 Ebony Maw on turn 6. So awesome, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, dude, the Taskmaster Ebony Maw turns on turn 6. It's really, I don't know. This deck isn't the most exciting thing to play for like an extended period of time, but I do think I think it's a good deck to have in the game, and I'm glad they unnerfed Red Skull and kind of put it back in a good spot in the metagame, because it's just a really good deck for people to be able to build with a limited collection, because you don't really need that many high series cards. Like, I mean, you technically can play this deck without Mobius, right? You don't really need Mobius, and the rest of the deck's super cheap. So I do think this is a good deck to have be a powerful deck in the metagame, because it gives people something to build towards with who aren't full collection. And it can be really, like, it's just a really fulfilling deck to play when you have limited time. Like, if you're somebody who plays Snap for 20 minutes, this is an awesome deck, because you just get to do really powerful things every game. So
fair enough. All right, let's keep going so we can... Okay, I'm in love with this deck. We have to talk about this deck. It's the Johnson Thanos, the new Thanos build that's basically an Alioth Professor X build, but Elsa makes it actually good. Because it was like built before Elsa, and then it was just like, oh, why don't we put Elsa in this? And now it's good.
This is the...
So I know...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was like, because I know Lamby has an opinion on this, because I actually was watching you on stream when you were trying it out, and I have a few issues with this exact list. I think Johnson won with this deck because he's an excellent Snap player, and this deck has a lot of, like, it has flaws that I personally don't agree with. Like, I don't like not having a Chavez. Like, I don't know how people run Thanos decks without Chavez, because you're just so much more likely to draw a really clunky hand. And that's exactly what happened when I tried this deck out, for the record. I played it for, like, I don't know, probably about an hour, and I had multiple games where I just lost because I drew Iron Lad, Blue Marble, Vision, Leader as my first 4 or 5 draws, and just didn't have anything to do for 3 turns and lost. And that was very frustrating. And I think Elsa is very good in Thanos. I think you need to play a little bit lower curve for that to be true. And this deck is so heavy on 5s and 6s. It's just insanely heavy on 5s and 6s, which makes it harder to make Elsa really, really good, which I think is worth doing in decks like this. Like, and you know, Glazer, if you were playing my list, I've actually had a ton of success with a very tempo-oriented Thanos list with Angela, Elsa, Silk, Jeff, and like Mobius, all this early game plays where you get to stack a couple lanes, and then you still have that Professor X high roll, you still have the Vision, you still have Alioth to close out the games. And that's felt better to me. Like, this kind of feels like it's in between 2 builds to me personally. I do appreciate that they didn't play Iron Lad and Chavez, because that's another pet peeve of mine. Is when people play a Thanos deck with Iron Lad and Chavez, because you shuffle the Chavez in with the stones. It's not a good strategy, but again, I think this is more a case of Johnson's just a really good player than this being a really, really solid list of Thanos. That's just my personal opinion.
So I'm not a really good player. Or, I mean, I guess I'm a pretty good player. But, like, I'm not as good as Johnson, right? And I feel like I can't lose with this deck unless the draw clunks me out. Like, I've been eating the meta alive with this deck.
That's good. And there's cool things about running Iron Lad over Chavez. Like, obviously, like I said, I don't think you should run both. But you do get there's a lot of upside to having Iron Lad in your deck. I just don't necessarily know how much I like it. I felt like the consistency Chavez adds every game wasn't worth the high roll potential Iron Lad adds like every 2 or 3 games. So that was that's my personal opinion. But
and I think Leader is just wrong in the deck. I get what he's trying to do. I just don't like him here.
It was good for what he was trying to do in an open deckless tournament where fair. You know when your opponents have Alioth. And that's really what I'm pretty sure that's what this was in here for. Is just to be able to go, oh, turn 6 you're trying to Alioth me, well, I'm going to Leader on another lane and kill your Alioth. Yep. With mine, and I win. So,
but you have to have space for that, and this deck never has space. Is my issue.
Sure, I agree. I don't like Leader and Thanos decks at all.
Yeah, so I played this deck because I mean, you guys by now know I love Thanos, right? I have so many Thanos splits, and I love Thanos. So when I saw this deck, I had to give it a shot. So I immediately felt the lack of Chavez. Like I've played so much Thanos to the point whereby I can feel with my mind, body, and soul when the deck is more inconsistent. And after playing for a while without the Chavez, I felt it straight up. But I also do understand that the Iron Lad and Chavez is a bit awkward. So eventually I decided cutting the Iron Lad for Chavez, and it was a bit smoother. It was definitely a bit smoother. So I also experimented with no leader, and no leader felt good. Yeah, I agree the leader was a bit weird for me. Yeah, but Elsa does some amazing things for this. This is one of the first decks that made me feel that convince myself that Elsa can just be splashed, because Elsa here is not really to go crazy. You just need to buff a Jeff, buff a Vision, heck, even buff Professor X just to get over the top in the lane it locks. You know, that kind of thing. You just need to buff 1 or 2 random things, and it's enough. So this is the first deck that made me feel like Elsa is super splashable. And just want to mention why this deck works. Is quite simple. It's you know W Thanos, the one where he did the whole last 2 months back. He just did Psylocke, Time Stone, and then play a 5-on-4, a 5-on-5, and a 6-on-6, or 5+1 on 6. This is just that deck. If you look at it, it's just basically still the same thing that Thanos has been doing for months, which is you prof on 4 on one lane, and then you solo another lane with stats. In this case, it's reverse stats. Instead of soloing with a lot of stats, you solo with Alioth. So it's the same thing. It's really the same thing, and it's Thanos' winning recipe right now. It's a bit sad. This is really the only way to play Thanos, but I really think this is the only way to play Thanos, which is you get your energy cheaters, to get the prof as early as possible. Previously, there was pre-nerf Spider-Man, which was worse. And pre-nerf Spider-Man, and yeah, it's you go prof on 4, and then you go Spider-Man on 5, right? And they die. That was the end all be all. But like now it's just Prof on 4, do stuff so you have initiative on 5, and then you Alioth on 6. So this is the core game plan of like this deck, and like it's like, I mean, it's a bit sad that this is like the only way we can really play Thanos effectively, but it is what it is. It is like the way we it works, and I can see why this deck works. So I think props to Johnson for like realizing this still works. Also props to him for being a good player. And yeah, good player plus like good idea, and then you top 8. Simple.
I mean, yeah, there's a refined version of this that's better, but I love the idea.
I
Also,
agree. And just stop cutting Chavez out of your Thanos decks, please.
Yeah,
like there's a few like cards here. Like, okay, so Leader, Iron Lad, and Mobius don't feel totally necessary here.
Leader, Iron Lad, and Mobius. I disagree about Mobius because a lot of your hardest matchups are like when Loki gets an
Yeah,
early.
that's
Like,
fair.
people are smart and they
Loki
Loki
is
you on
good
3 with the cards that you have in your deck. Just look at how that curves out. Like just even
Yeah,
from this
fair
deck, it's turn 4 Professor X, turn 5 Alioth, or Thanos, and turn 6. You know, a 6-drop plus another card. A lot of times they can play like a 6-drop plus a Jeff, and you just lose. So
Fair.
I do think Mobius is necessary. Plus, it just gives you so much free wins into the maniacs out there still trying to run like the really broken like negative decks and stuff like that. You just get so much free equity on that.
When I saw, I think it was Hoogland posted a negative deck the other day, I was like, oh, please, please, please let people start playing this. This is so free.
Oh, I feel bad for negative. Once the tyrant of the meta, now the now the joke. Put him back to 4/4. Come on, just give him back his stats so he's at least a playable card. But he feels even worse now when you generate him too. He's always felt bad, but now it's like, well, he literally does nothing. He makes all my cards worse.
Yep, whole deck. All right, let's keep going. All right, this is the better version of the Thanos deck. Still not perfect, but better.
I still don't see a Chavez. I don't understand. Where's Chavez?
They chose Lad over Chavez. That's the answer. They want the high roll of 2 cards, right? They want the high roll of double Alioth, and they want the high roll of Professor X. Like the idea is, I didn't see my ramp. I've got a Professor X shot.
I'll say I do get that. I do get missing your ramp, but that's why I prefer. Again, it's all just a matter of playstyle. And that's the nice thing about Snap is you can kind of customize it to your playstyle. But I like having the tempo oriented version of this build where you have a little bit more 2 and 3 costs, and then you don't need the Iron Lad because if you miss on ramp, you just go 2 plus stone or 3 plus stone on 4, and then you can still generate Professor X if you've got your Elsa because you're going to still put a decent amount of stats there. And I don't know this. I don't know that. The lack of Chavez when you already are running a much more inconsistent deck than your opponents is just mind-blowing to me. I don't know. I'll never understand it. I don't think I'll ever run a Thanos deck without Chavez unless they nerf her and change how she works. But other than that, I love this list. I like it's just, again, like Lammy said, this is just that core of Psylocke or Time Stone on 3, Professor X on 4, Priority on 5, Alioth on 6 and win. That's just what you're going for. That's your goal, and it just I think it just works. This one's a little bit lower curve, which I do like, but still no Chavez. That's an all stop for me.
Yeah, I just want to add like one thing, which is like very similar to what I wanted to add for the previous deck. But I forgot to say, which is I'm running Claw actually.
Yes,
Claw's so good. Like right now,
I love Claw.
It's like I would say it's like the less popular way of dodging Alioth, but also Claw on turn 4 into like Prof or Dino into like is a lot of stats, and it's, I mean, if your whole purpose is to ramp out like a 5 on 4, that's effectively the deck. I think Claw is very well positioned. Obviously the downside is like you can only Claw left or mid lane, but like it's a very small downside. I guess that's why Vision is just like largely better. But Claw is one of the most underrated cards in the game right now. Like I just think Claw in this deck, when you can ramp like 5 on 4, is a big deal.
All right.
I do think like Claw is a a better vision situationally, but it's also a lot harder to play because you gotta like have planned out where you want everything to go, what you think your opponent's going to do, so you know the right lane to claw. And I think that is enough reason for a lot of people just to take the flexibility of vision. I do think that's the slot.
So wait. So okay, so our deck right now will be Elsa, Psylocke, Jeff, Mobius. Then we're cutting Shang and Iron Lad. So we're running Blue Marvel, Claw, Devil Dino, Professor X, Vision, Alioth, obviously Thanos, and America. And then that's the deck.
Generally don't like Blue Marvel either.
I don't.
I'm not a huge fan
I
of Blue
don't
Marvel.
either. And if you have Claw, maybe you don't need it, and that's where you can find your extra cheap card, which I think to me is Spider-Man, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I feel like Blue Marvel is the ultimate win more card in Thanos, where when you have a really good draw, of course Blue Marvel's good because you have cards in like every spot on your lanes and he looks amazing. But then like the games, like people don't think about it, the games where you don't draw perfectly and you just go Psylocke into X. And then, like, Blue Marvel's just a dead card. He's just making Devil Dino bigger. That's all he's there for. He's just +2 power with Devil Dino. You never want to play him. And I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of Blue Marvel and Thanos decks. It very rarely makes a cut for me.
Hey, this might be the stupidest thing I've ever said, so feel free to both yell at me. Is Blue Marvel Loki?
It's possible.
Like in Loki?
No, you just like swap out Blue Marvel for Loki in this deck.
And then just
on just turn in the deck. Oh.
Yeah, like you draw that really weird hand with Thanos, right? And you're just like, oh, I've got 4 high cost cards. All right, screw it, Loki. Thanks for your cheaper stuff.
It's actually
I'm not saying it's good, I think. But I actually would like that a lot better than Blue Marvel in this deck. So if that tells you anything, I would actually prefer to have Loki right in that spot.
I feel like it might actually just be solid.
Ooh, I'll experiment tomorrow. Yeah, you said you want to come hang out. Maybe you come hang out with me one of these days this week, and we'll experiment with some Loki Thanos.
Okay,
could be spicy.
Fun. Yeah. Now we got to try not to add lockjaw, but all right, let's keep going. The Human Spiders Loki deck. So where is Elsa?
Okay, wait. This one I need to like jump in.
Why is Sean
now?
Here?
I need to jump in.
Go, it's yours.
Because
I hate this build.
The only reason why the Human Spiders decks always feel like it's missing one card, like it really always feels like it's missing one card, is because he's F2P. That's it. It's just because he's F2P.
That's a really good reason. Okay.
Yeah, his decks.
Wait, how do you get Loki?
I don't know. I think he won a pass, like legit.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay, so he's always been F2P, which is like the funny thing because there was this time that he was like second place in a tournament, and the only reason why he lost was because he doesn't own Jeff, and then few days later he bought Jeff, like with tokens. So look, Elsa's really not here just because he's F2P. Like that's basically it. Yeah.
So why is Shang here? Because Shang beat him.
Oh yeah. So once again, I know the exact reason as well because remember earlier in the video, like half an hour ago, I was saying that like when I was playing Loki, sometimes the only time when I was playing Bounce / Loki, one of the things that I couldn't beat was Shuri Sauron's nut draw. Right? It's like literally that curve. This Shang is here just for that matchup. Like when I saw the list, I asked him, he immediately say yes, and we were like, alright, bro, same page. But like, yeah, so the only reason why Shang is here is for that matchup. Like, and because like the thing about Loki is that like if you don't meet the matchup, you just Loki the whole hand away. So Shang is like really for that matchup because Shuri Sauron, especially for Loki, like Loki gets even less points than Bounce. Okay, not like gets less points than Bounce out consistently, right? Because Bounce has Monkey, he has Iron Man. And we did mention that the Iron Man was one of the reasons why we won the Shuri Sauron matchup. So this doesn't even have Iron Man, so that's why the Shang is here. But I also called it straight up during the finals or like semi-finals that this Shang is gonna kill him in the mirror, and it did kill him in the mirror. So I think it's just like funny thing is I never expected 3 Loki in the final. So maybe he didn't expect like Loki to be that popular as well. So he's like, alright, fine, let's just Shang the Shuri Sauron and not worry about the mirror. But turns out the mirror was actually more prominent and it killed him. But other than that, the rest of the deck is like probably just Sentinel for Elsa and it's like Shang for something. And I mean I like Legion and Loki, so I think that's it. Oh, Angela.
I like the list other than Elsa not being here, but it makes sense if he's free to play. I think it's a solid. I mean, the Quinjet I don't really love either because there's so much Mobius, but But yeah, Shang is super awkward, and I've seen it a lot lately in the Loki mirror, which I guess
either.
means it's less
Yeah, no
less
Angela.
prominent on a. Oh yeah, that is odd. That one's a little more odd to me. I don't know. I think if you are missing Elsa because you're free to play, Angela's just a fine card to play in a lot of the decks that run it if they're not already running Angela, because it's just a very similar style of card. It helps you stack a lane really well.
My feeling watching the tournament was he had a worse version of Loki than a lot of other people, but he was just better.
Yeah.
And like
he's very good. He stomped
he's
me
phenomenal.
in the last tournament I played. He just absolutely destroyed me. Playing, I believe the Thanos deck. It was pretty funny. I got annihilated.
So I
read me like a book.
I call out of the Battle Arena tournaments, and whenever he's playing, I'm always like, Jesus Christ! Like he's just so good. He's just so good.
Yeah. So I had this like long history with him because like he's like my literal first practice partner in this game. Like when Battle Mode just launched, he was the first person I actually practiced with, which was very funny because like, I could have practiced with anyone, right? But I randomly was free when he was free, and we practiced. And turns out this person is probably like one of the people that so like I subconsciously know that I can beat a lot of people in this game if I'm not playing 100%. But this guy, if I'm not playing 100%, I probably cannot beat him because it's like it's crazy lah. It's just crazy how well this guy knows how to play his cards. He's not mentally as like experienced as me, and he admits that. But in terms of just playing the game of Marvel Snap, this human spider guy he just knows how to play the game, which is crazy. Like I feel like when I was practicing against him, I had to make like every 51-49 correct in my life to beat him, that kind of thing. Like this guy just knows how to play the cards. And I think my only edge over him was that like I knew what bluffing was, and like a lot of the games that I won him, I was just bluff snapping and then he was folding. So it was quite funny. But like the actual playing of the cards, like this guy is like second to none in Marvel Snap that I've actually like played against. This guy's really, really good. Really, really good. Yeah.
Agreed. All right. This is the second place Loki. And it makes more sense to me.
It does.
Right? Like it's just it is it's running Luke Cage, which I don't think it should be. I think Mirage is secretly really good though.
Wait, do you say secretly good
love
or
this style of Loki?
Good. I think it's secretly good. So people miss a lot of kitty turns, and a +2 kitty is just a really powerful card.
It's like my least favorite.
Either.
Yeah, it's like my least favorite random generation card right now, like in the standard Loki list. But I guess definitely worth exploring. It's really just my least favorite because like when I was playing Loki, I realized this was a while back. I haven't put her in a deck since like a week ago. But when I was playing her in the list, I realized that like half the time the card I get from her is just a card that like gets spins away for Loki, you know. So I mean the kitty example makes sense, but like if it's not exactly kitty, a lot of the time I still think I prioritize like playing Loki with the free card I get from her than actually playing the card that she gets me, you know.
Well, and Kitty specifically, a lot of times they're playing Kitty out, so it's kind of hard to snag a Kitty from their hand with her, at least in my experience.
Yeah, same.
So my most wanted card in the game right now is a second Elsa Bloodstone, I think, very often. Either way, they're both cut. They're both cut from my version. I'm running exactly this list, except Maria, Helen, Falcon.
All right, there's no Maria.
It's Kitty, Snowguard, Maria, Angela, Collector, Elsa, Falcon, Jeff, Mobius, Agent Coulson, Loki, America. That's my version.
I think either that deck or the move deck we looked at earlier. Well, not the exact list we looked at earlier, but the move deck with Kitty that Lamby was talking about. I think one of those two decks is probably the best deck in the game for me personally. I think if the person plays it optimally, they're just so hard to beat.
Yeah, I really value Mariah Hill very heavily in Loki decks. Like she's just, I mean, her bad hits are kind of good. Sorry,
her bad hits are kind of good.
I got a Wolverine before, and then there was a Death Domain there, and I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. It's quite hilarious.
So I pulled earlier tonight. I pulled a Collector from her, and it was a cloning VATS game. So I won.
Oh
my gosh!
It was just like
insane.
Like it's. I mean, It's silly, and she needs to be in the decks because all this deck cares about is 2-drops. Again, that second Elsa Bloodstone, I'll do a lot for that second Elsa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe Coulson is the cut. Is that crazy?
I've experimented without Coulson.
Probably.
I've actually experimented without Coulson. I feel like with Snowguard, like if your Loki is now like not the only win condition and going for all these token-based strategies with like Angela, Elsa and Collector is also like something to win with, then actually having like just Snowguard and Mariah as random generation might be enough. Yeah.
And then you just keep replaying them with Falcon. All right. This deck is... I'm in love with this deck. I think it's the best thing to do.
I think it's very good. I think it's scary.
All right. And I hate this deck. The first place deck is the Patriot Broodme bullshit. It's got Vision in it, which is brilliant. Vision is brilliant in this deck. Because it added Elsa and Vision is brilliant. I love the Vision ad, but it added Alioth instead of Doom and it made me sad.
What's better? I mean, I think for the way this deck plays out, because you want to fill your lanes before the last turn, and the Doom bots don't get the buff from Elsa.
I know it's right. It just makes me sad because it's the most it makes Shuri look interactive.
Yeah, I wanted to say as well that like I keep saying like simple decks are good, right? But okay, so this deck is good because of also certain level of inevitability, which is like Forge Brood Apps is used to be 31, now it's 41 stats. Now it's 28 stats, which is still a lot, right? On 4 turns is mad. But like, I mean, okay, so personally, I actually think that the Shuri Sauron deck is actually still better than this. In terms of like inevitable stats, right? Because like it's just more numbers, like Shuri, Red Skull, Task. Of course, that one a bit more vulnerable to Alioth. But yeah, so anyway, not to talk too much about Shuri Sauron. But this deck, okay, so this deck, I saw the player play this deck when I was casting this deck. I think the player played well. The player probably could have won with another deck as well, but they won with this deck. Like I'm not gonna put too much like stock into this deck, just cause it won. I'm putting more stock in the fact that the player that played it was good. Go ahead.
More than good. Like, and this is not an insult because he played excellently. He played very good, but like he also went Forge, Brood, Absorbing Man a million games in a row.
That's true. I saw that. I was casting that.
That's part of the game, though.
Yeah, I'm not insulting. That's not an insult. I'm not taking away from him being good, but like you don't skill draw those 3 cards in that order, and that's just a thing that happens a lot in certain rounds.
This build is relatively is a lot more weak also because no Iron Man, no Blue Marvel, right? So actually, you are not wrong in saying that like if it doesn't Forge Brood Apps, if it doesn't Forge Brood Apps, this deck is a lot weaker than traditional Brood Apps with Iron Man and Blue Marvel. Like it doesn't. It's a lot weaker. And the Elsa can be awkward if you also don't draw Forge Brood Apps, because a lot of people don't realize that what you do with Elsa in this deck, right, is you go Forge, you go Brood, then turn 4. If you don't have apps, you play Jeff Elsa, Jeff into the Brood lane, Jeff gets buffed. Then you shift it out, then you play Vision into the Brood lane, Vision gets buffed. So that's basically the game-winning line if you don't draw apps, man. Why I know this is because like as much as I hate this deck, I need to know how to play this deck and against this deck. So I actually grinded a few hours of this deck just because I'm just that kind of player. But yeah, so yeah, that's the play line that you can go for with this deck if you don't draw the apps, man. But regardless, if you don't draw the Brood or you don't draw the Forge, you are actually just always severely behind. So this deck, I feel like is like Glazer said, like perfectly. It makes Shuri Sauron feel interactive.
It's just you do the same thing.
It's just mind-numbingly boring to play. It is. And that's, I think that's fine to have decks like that in the game. I just don't like when they're this popular and you see them so much, because it's just like, I don't know. There's games where I know Lambie's probably been there too, where I'm playing against somebody in Conquest and they're playing this deck and I lose like the Conquest overall just because they do that. They do the thing every game and they play pretty badly and they make a lot of mistakes, but it just doesn't matter because the deck just can put out so many points. And there's just nothing you can do, and it can be pretty frustrating to play against decks like that. But other than that, I mean, like, it is a good deck, and we don't know for sure, but it sounds like we might be seeing some changes to it coming up as well from what we were talking about earlier. So I would like to see this deck brought down a peg, just like I would like to see some of the move stuff brought down a peg as well.
So Lamby was asleep, just so you know, in the weird possible data mine thing. Forge is showing as a 1/1. So we're assuming that's a 1/1 +2.
Oh, okay. Like based on the leak thing, right?
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
shown in the video.
The
Yeah,
accidental.
again, it's all speculative,
Yeah,
so we don't know.
We don't
for
know
sure,
if that's ever going to happen, but it's something they probably at least tested.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at Surfer down to 2, Elsa also theoretically probably can go down to 2 +2, right? Like +3 and +2
Elsa
is
should
like,
be +2.
yeah, +3 and +2 is like such a world of difference. Like, no one ever complained that the Patriot card was broken, right? Because Patriot gave +2.
Mhm.
But the moment something gave +3, like Forge, Elsa currently, Silver previously, Surfer previously, like, yeah, +3 is just different. I don't know why, but +3 just hits different, man.
So there's just breakpoints in the way stats work in the
Yeah,
game,
that's true.
right?
It's just the way everything's statted. I think a 2 power buff from Elsa is probably fine. I also think they could, if they were worried about that being too much of a nerf, they could start moving her down to like a 2/0 or a 2/1 like they've done with cards. But at 3, it's like we said, 3 is just so much, especially when you build your deck around it and you get to do it every single turn, sometimes multiple times in a turn. Like with bounce, that's what's crazy about bounce is when you have that final turn, you fill up every single lane, and she's just like a 2/11. It's just insane. It's just crazy. And they nerfed Hitmonkey for sometimes being a 2/10 or a 2/12.
Yeah.
I
that's
personally
bonkers.
think, like, personally think that the Elsa will get nerfed to +2. Like, I think it's the logical change, and
Mhm.
like, and plus she's also she's too splashable already. Like, I feel
Mhm.
like cards like Elsa, SD definitely are monitoring her super closely, because I feel like they just know that she can go crazy and be too busted, right? Like, and at this point in time, I feel like because she's so splashable, and like, it's so easy to get multiple +3s from her in any deck. Like not like in bounce, I get like +3s off of her like 5 times. That's like bounce things. But like in normal decks, like 2 times, she's a 2/8, right? That's just mad already. So I think I really think this card will get nerfed to +2, and yeah, it will stay at the same cost, I believe, but like it'll be +2. I'm like very sure, just based on my own knowledge and like my own assumptions, I think it will be +2.
All right.
So I think it's a healthy change because it's still very good at that rate. So
Yeah.
All right, friends. This brings us to the final segment of all of our episodes, which is our variant of the week. We have 3 awesome America Chavez ones. Why don't we start with who picked the one on the right here for our loyal viewers? I don't know which artist that is off the top of my head.
It is the Pride Bundle.
It's the Pride Bundle one. That's awesome. Great pick. Who picked the Pride Bundle America Chavez?
that was me.
All right, Peaceful.
That
Why'd
was
you pick
me.
it?
So this is a twofold because I also actually it's kind of hilarious. I looked at the slide ahead of time and I just laughed because these are my 3 favorite Chavez and I have all 3 of them. But the reason the Pride one's my favorite is honestly just the splits I have on her. That's what it boiled down to because I love all the arts on all 3 of these. They're, like I said, they're my 3 favorites. I have amazing splits on that left America Chavez as well. But the first split I did on this America Chavez, it was gold with the rainbow sparkle.
Oh, that's
Flare. And I've
perfect.
never liked the rainbow sparkle either, but for the Pride bundle
Yeah,
variant, that
perfect.
just seemed like too perfect. It seemed too perfect. So yeah, I just love her. I love it. It's my favorite variant of her. I use it every time now. And I'm still looking for a good variant on you, Ryan Gonzalez, America Chavez, someday.
Lamby, that means you picked the Ryan Gonzalez in the center here. Why did you pick that variant?
Okay, so I was almost going to pick the Venomized variant. Cause that one I actually like spend gold to buy because I thought it was really quite nice. Then I realized like the Venomized variant doesn't actually look like Chavez. It's like the only Chavez that doesn't look like a Chavez. It's too out there already, but I still like the cut. Okay, but I picked Ryan Gonzalez, America Chavez, because I like her art a lot. Like I got the Rogue like physical sign thing from the Creator Clash.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was really nice. Like I generally like her art. Like I'm not a big fan of like like cutesy style art, and her art sometimes can be a bit cutesy, right? But like it's just, I think because it also looks very like watercolor, you know, like painted on. Like I like the fact that it's like it looks very painted on. I like that kind of style. So that's why I like her art a lot. And yeah, second would be the Venomized one, but Venomized one doesn't look like Chavez, but I just like the card. So
Glazer, why did you pick
Roy and I,
the Jim McKelvey one?
we both picked it, right?
Mhm.
I picked it because I love Jamie McKelvey art. This feels like quintessential America Chavez to me. Like I loved like everything Jamie McKelvey does. I completely love, and this just feels like if I closed my eyes and was like, "What is America Chavez?" It's this.
okay.
Yep, it was also my
Glazer, you
first
need to next
variant.
time you're. Oh really? Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Oh, I was gonna say, Glazer, you need to next time you tune into my stream, you need to ask me to show you. I have so many splits on that Chavez.
Nice.
That was my favorite one until I got the Pride Bundle one. I have so
I-
many splits. They're beautiful.
I pulled this one like a week ago, and I've got a nice gold Pride bundle. 'Cause
Nice.
That was the previous one, and I've got the that one, the one on this slide, the baby chibi, whatever it is, and I've got the obviously beautiful pixel.
All right.
Oh yeah, the baby. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. All
So
right.
let's wrap this up with a quick reminder. Lamby, if our loyal listeners and loyal viewers become your loyal listeners and loyal viewers, what would they find from your content?
Well, so my content is, I mean, as Glazer has posted like many times on his YouTube, like lots of good decks, lots and lots of good decks. I often define the meta as well. So if you like to follow me for good decks, you can also follow me for good Marvel Snap gaming tips and like how to play. I compete better in Marvel Snap or like card games in general. Yeah, that's basically why you want to follow me. I'm less of a like quality of live content creator. Like I don't really do much about like the whole bundles and like gold and acquisition stuff. That's not really my thing. My thing is more towards like helping you get good at a game. I mean, for lack of a better explanation. And so far it's been pretty successful, yeah.
So my turn. I'm instead of telling you how he's the best player again, I'm going to instead explain to you why I like him, because that's a different reason. I don't like you because you're good at the game. There's lots of people who are like very good. I do think you're the best, but like that's not why I like you. I like you because you're kind and patient. Because it's
Aw.
very easy. You're not like falsely humble, but it's very easy for people who are as good as you to be like, you're stupid for not doing this. You're wrong for not doing this. And instead, your reaction is almost always to be like, hey, I think you should do this. This is right for me. And here's why the player I am does this. And like that patience and explanation. And like you genuinely care when you're helping people. And I don't think that someone can fake that. And it means a lot. And it's why I'm not promoting you just because you're good. I'm promoting you because like you are good to people, and I think that's so important.
I
Chime in real
appreciate
quick.
it. Yeah, sure.
Is that if I chime in real quick,
Yeah,
Wolf?
do the thing, man.
So I'm going to add a little bit to the cell. As I've already mentioned once, I helped Lammy with his next level snap series on his channel, and I have never once felt like Lammy looked down on me, treated me differently, acted like he was better than me. He's obviously an amazing player, and he knows he is, and he should. But he's also just a genuinely good person. So if you want to follow someone who is going to both help you get better at the game and is just a genuinely cool dude, a genuinely good dude, Lammy's the one.
Wow. Guys, I appreciate that a lot. That's the first time two people said the same thing like that. And I appreciate it. Yeah,
I
but
mean
like,
it, man.
No question.
I was super nervous to start doing that series with you. I'm like, I mean, it's Lammy. He's like one of the best players in Snap. I'm like, he's going to think I'm an idiot. He's going to think I don't know what I'm doing. And I never have once felt that way. You've always made me feel like you always appreciated the work I put in, and you've always been really cool. So thank you.
I guess I'm just gonna add one thing to that. Like, I'm glad you guys feel that way because like, Glazer also said it. Like, I genuinely enjoy helping people improve. Like, I mean, it's not like, okay. So firstly, this is like full time for me. So money is important. Like, I value earning money and like monetizing my content. Like, that's not gonna change, right? I need that to survive. But at the same time, I also really value like if people can improve from what I do. Like, you know, the messages that sometimes people send you like, hey, I took your advice when I watched your video, blah blah blah, and then I actually got to a certain rank, I improved, I did this thing which you said in a video and it worked, blah blah. You know, that kind of thing. Like it just feels good because like you have positively impacted them, whether like you didn't know you did, but you did, and they told you that you positively impacted them. And like I think this is what I enjoy most now, aside from just competing, because it used to be for me, I competed and winning felt good. Winning still feels good now, but I feel like as a pro player, as a like former esports player, I think what's the most important is the legacy you leave behind when you finally end it all. And I feel like after I jumped over from Hearthstone to Snap, I realized that the pool of like 19 years of card game knowledge can be shared as such, and that's the legacy I want to leave behind. So I guess it's going in the right direction. Yeah.
Awesome. All amazing things. You should all go follow Lamby. Let's move over to Peaceful. All right, Peaceful. If our loyal listeners and loyal viewers became your loyal listeners and loyal viewers, what would they get from your content?
Content, as far as compared to YouTube or Twitch, is a little different. My Twitch content is much more relaxed. It's much more about creating an environment where people can be comfortable, can come hang out. Like, we listen to a lot of music. We play a lot of silly games. Like, I love playing. We've been playing Pictionary this week, where oh my gosh, y'all, if y'all haven't gone and looked at my tweet, I don't know, like to say I'll go look at this specific tweet, but I tweeted out my version of Apocalypse, and it was hilarious and perfect. And if anyone says differently, they're wrong.
Yeah, it was great.
And,
I guess wrong.
It's
I was in that chat.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, you did guess wrong. You tried though. It was close. I thought it was pretty good, but clearly not. But I like to try and create an environment where people can be comfortable coming in and if you just need to hang out, it's cool. If you have questions, it's cool. And if you want to help me, it's cool. Like, it's just we have a really good time. It's like more of I try and build a community where people can kind of hang out and have a good time. As far as my YouTube, I highly recommend checking out my YouTube if you enjoy seeing some different decks each week. I try and pick decks that are like on the meta, but like on the cusp of the meta, maybe a little bit different. Like I focus on the Hitmonkey, Jane Foster Thor build for Elsa first before I did any of the mainstream meta decks that people were playing, because I want people to be able to have sort of different things they can try out in the meta game. And that's sort of what I focus on with my YouTube. It's been really fun having people, like Lammy said. I think my favorite thing right now is when I put a deck out and I give my pointers on it and how I think people should play it, when they should snap and that sort of thing, and having people come back and tell me they hit infinite, or they're up 20 ranks or whatever it may be because of my advice and the deck that I gave them. It's just a really good feeling. So if that's something you need help with, come check me out. I feel like I've got a lot to offer in that area. And if you just need somewhere to hang out where you can feel welcome, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what you like, we have a really awesome environment on my Twitch stream. I'd love to have you come hang out.
I want to talk about the YouTube, if that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So actually first, Peaceful is doing a subathon this week. So when you get this, hop on, go check out his stream. It's definitely worth doing. I will probably be there if I am home and not with my child. That's what I've been doing all week. But
appreciate it, man.
That's my sales pitch is this for him. If you like any of my YouTube content, Peaceful's better than I. He's one of the it's fine, it's true. I'm not like hurt by it. It's just true. There's like 3 or 4 people I feel I'm similar to, and Peaceful is better than me. He's better at explaining things. He's got higher visual production values. I don't think he's necessarily more analytical, but he's every bit as analytical about things. I just think his content is like through the roof good. It's absurd to me that he doesn't have a bajillion followers. Like, he's fan-freaking-tastic at this. It's very similar in feel to what I do, but he's better. And like, if you're following me, you should be following him. There's no reason on earth not to.
Yeah, I want to add to that.
I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to add to that. It's quite funny because like when being Peaceful approached me, I had like zero expectations because I didn't know anything about him initially. I knew he existed, obviously, but like I didn't really know his work, right? So the thing is, I'll be completely honest. When he approached me for this series, I really needed help to kickstart the YouTube. Like, and he approached me at the legit right time. It just happened to be the right time, And like, so I was like, okay, let's do this. And like, after working with him for like a few months, I realized, firstly, his work ethic is really good. Like, every time we record, like, everything's there. Like, I literally rock up, we record, done. Like, everything is there. Like, it's perfect. And then like you said, his production is good, and he just knows. And like, I feel like when he came to like approach me to help with the channel and everything, like, he was very genuine as well. Like, I could tell that like he knew his stuff and everything. So like he really knows like the whole like video making game. And I'm so surprised that he doesn't have like more followers. Like I think he should have more followers. So yeah, do drop him a follow. And like this guy knows his stuff. Like plus we're also quite similar in the sense that like we both love card games, and like I think our outlook on card games is very similar in a sense. Like we both love Chavez, for example. Yeah, I mean that's just one, but like very similar outlook on the game. So yeah, do drop him a follow. He's great.
You, Lamby.
All right. Make sure you go out there and follow PeacefulSea. And when you're done doing that, just a quick reminder for folks, you can find us at SnapJudgeCast on Twitter/X. We're on the Marvel Snap Zone Discord, which you can find in the description of this episode on your friendly neighborhood podcatcher or on the YouTube. Our email is snapjudgmentspodcast@gmail.com. We're on Mastodon at snapjudgments with an E at tabletop.vip. And most importantly, our show's YouTube, where Glazer posts his daily snap takes, is at snapjudgmentspod. All right, that brings us to the end of another episode of All New Snap Judgments. Lamby, thank you for being another repeat guest of ours. Great to have you on. You always offer awesome insight.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you guys have me as well. I enjoyed this. I mean, this is one of the longer podcasts that I do, but I never felt like it was like too long. It was just enjoyable to talk to you guys and chill and vibe. And of course, this time we have Peaceful on with me, which is like someone I worked with very closely for the last 2 months. So yeah, I think everything felt good. I'll be back. If you guys want me to be back, I know Glazer probably wants me to be back, but like if you guys want me to be back,
I definitely want you to be back too, Lamby. I always learn a lot from you when you're on the show. And
awesome. Thank you.
Peaceful, it was wonderfully peaceful to have you on the show. You were a great guest, and we really, really appreciated you coming and joining us this evening.
Anytime. I honestly, like, as you can tell, Lamby and I like to talk. We're always having to shorten up our the next level snap episodes we do, because it's just there's so much. I love talking about this stuff. Anytime you guys want to have me on, I'll be happy to join in. Just know that it's probably going to go an hour or so longer than you planned on, because I just
Exactly.
Such is the way of things. Aaron, my friend, thank you once again for joining me for another episode.
Peace and love, everybody.
All right, friends, that brings us to the complete end of another episode of Snap Judgments. See you next week. And until then, keep on snapping and stay safe.